Welcome to the wonderful world of my messy desk. It's at places like this that you get things done. Some time ago, there was a person quoted as saying, "Everyone laughed when I sat down to play the piano." And some time ago, some friends of mine said, "Why don't you start a television program?" Sure, why don't we start a railroad, too? And then I started thinking about it after I got through laughing after I sat down. With all of the television channels that are operating here in the Valley, no one is doing a local magazine program. So I thought, why don't we give it a shot? After all, we've got this wonderful world of cable to work with. And what a beautiful opportunity for some research and development and some idea experimenting. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be throwing out a series of ideas, experiments, and who knows, down the road, we may just get the right ingredients to put something really great together. So tonight, you are witnessing the planting of a seed. Oh, and we have a name for our program, too.
Here's the Foxtowner, the only television magazine in the Valley by and about Valley folks. And now your host, the man who gets around and knows the Valley best, Walt Kalata.
We're in the middle of the long, hot summer. Early this year, attention focused on College Avenue when swarms of what appeared to be a lot of young people congregated, much to the displeasure of other elements of the population who complained that no good could possibly come from droves of youngsters who discovered that Main Street was a compelling place, especially on weekends. They sit on benches, hang on corners, drive their cars in an almost endless circle. Downtown College Avenue, to the middle 80s generation, is apparently the place to be. College Avenue on a typical weekend. Well, we spent about 3 weekends on the avenue doing just what you do there. Driving, walking, and milling with the crowds. So, what did we learn? Well, first of all, we were never accosted. No one swore at us. Someone did hand us a religious pamphlet. And not everyone who congregates along the avenue is a kid. There are considerable adult age representatives. Granted, few are in the senior citizen category. If you should live in an apartment in the College Avenue traffic pattern, of course, we can sympathize. The situation can be annoying. And true, the fact there have been no criminal incidents resulting to date does not dismiss the fact it is not necessarily a convention of saints. There have been some incidents, but none have been serious. The Avenue presentation tonight has not been presented as a judgment, but rather a reflection of what we found when we went down on the Avenue ourselves to take a look. If there are judgments to be made, then you'll have to do that for yourself. In our studio this evening is Captain Russ Boers of the Appleton Police Department. And Captain Boers has been the member of the Appleton Police Department who has been most responsible for looking after what's been going on downtown, compiling statistics, and generally making an assessment of the situation that's there. Captain Boers, how would you, in a nutshell, take a look at College Avenue? Is it an area that's been a problem? Does it just look like it's a problem? Or is it part of the growing pains that we've been recognizing in a lot of areas in Appleton?
Well, I think all three of the points that you made there could be viewed with some validity. It is a problem from some people's point of view in that traffic is congested. There are a lot of people down there that are not shoppers, so to speak, in a business district. On the other hand, a lot of the perceived problem is just that. It's a matter of perception, and that, I think a lot of it is growing pains for the city. We are growing, we are expanding rapidly, and we're becoming a very vital center of the Fox River Valley, and that attracts people.
Well, I understand that when you and your staff began to compile data as to what is happening there, that one of the things you discovered is that, first of all, there are an awful lot of people from outside of Appleton who are choosing Appleton as a focal point for some reason or other. I understand that there have been individuals who are into restoration of automobiles, have been bringing them down to use College Avenue as a showcase. Maybe you could go on from there as to some of the other things. In other words, what I'm saying is that it appears that we have a situation that's more than just what appears to be loitering.
Well, essentially that's correct. We've, in some respects, created a stage, and so the actors come to the stage to perform, and then they draw an audience. We can liken it to a stage and audience. The vehicles on the avenue are being shown by people who are proud of them, or perhaps just people who are cruising looking for friends or dates or whatever.
You even had some people from Milwaukee drive up with them, so that goes to show how far our fame is spread.
We, in fact, another alderman and I were out cruising one night looking at the scene ourselves and doing some traffic stops, and we'd made a stop on one person from the Milwaukee area, and we asked him what attracted him to Appleton, and he happened to be in the area, in Waupaca area, actually camping. But he came to Appleton because he heard it was nicer to cruise in than Milwaukee, so he came to take a look. And he said, in fact, we were. The people were friendlier, and the area was much prettier. So.
You've been drawn into this, of course, because there have been complaints brought to your attention, to the attention of the Appleton Police Department. What have been the nature of these complaints? I understand that a lot of them have originated from people who generally have their apartments and some of their homes in the near College Avenue area.
Well, that's correct. The majority of the complaints we get are directed at noise and the loitering, boisterous activity of the young people out there. It is a nuisance to those families or persons that try to live on the avenue, but it can be likened, I think, in some respects to persons who perhaps bought a house 40 years ago by an airport where small airplanes landed and now has jet service. Mm-hmm. The noise has increased, their respect for the area has decreased essentially the same way, but the avenue is growing. It is an entertainment center now, and quite frequently several areas of that avenue are taken over by an entertainment type crowd.
That's the next question I was going to ask you. Of course, we have Park Central there, which has, I believe, 3 establishments and some subsidiary organizations within it. We have the Paper Valley Hotel, and there are other establishments located in the area that to cater to people. When we did our walking tours, it occurred to us that these were not all kids that were hanging up and down the avenue. There were an awful lot of adults that seemed to be making a boardwalk out of it as well. Is the fact that Paper Valley and Park Central so close together a contributing factor to part of this avenue scene?
Well, it contributes to the congestion. There's no doubt about that. A lot of the traffic that's there is only there sporadically because it's looking for a parking place. The ramps are usually full. The back lots behind Park Central are usually full on any given evening, especially weekends. And the pedestrian traffic in the summertime in particular is heavy with adults. For that reason, that particular block doesn't attract too many of the young crowd. In fact, that particular block probably averages closer to 25 years of age than 15. The age group that's out there avenue-wide ranges from 14 to 25. And of course, we have to consider also that new state legislation regarding the drinking age has moved the 18, 19, and 20-year-olds out of the taverns and onto the street. Mm-hmm. They have nowhere else to go any longer.
So, as far as the police department is concerned, has College Avenue at night actually represented what you would consider a serious police problem?
Well, I don't want to characterize it as a police problem because that's not the fact. The fact is that if it is a problem at all, it is a community-wide problem, and it is based essentially on community attitudes about where the young people should go, what they should be doing, and what will be tolerated in their actions. It has not become a police problem as far as crime is concerned. Statistically, person-to-person body-type crime, assaultive-type crime, the type that is feared most and publicized the most virtually is non-existent. We do not have that. There is some minor property vandalism and so on occasionally, but even that is of a very small and minute nature compared to the number of people that are out there and what might be expected.
You'd probably have that sort of a complaint situation, regardless of whether there was anybody on the avenue or not.
Well, actually, our statistics show that if we bracket a certain number of hours on the avenue for the loitering situation, there is no more activity then in terms of vandalism than there is any other time of the day. We can show that statistically, that it's pretty well spread out around the clock.
Now, maybe, Captain Boers, this is one of those questions that shouldn't be asked, but I'm sure there are going to be people who want the answer to it anyway. Who is complaining the most about the avenue scene? Or is there a category?
Well, not really. Naturally, we've met with members of the Appleton Downtown Retailers Association, and they've been very understanding, very helpful in trying to determine solutions for what they perceive to be the conflict of hours between their shoppers and the young people out there. Some complaints come in from citizens who traverse the avenue and say, well, no wonder nobody wants to shop, we can't even move in the traffic. It's really not a specific group of people. Some residents of the avenue complain about the noise, but it's nothing that we could target as a specific group of complainers, so to speak.
Have you had to put extra patrol people out as a result of any of this?
Well, we have done that with the assistance of the Downtown Retailers Association. They provided some funding to hire off-duty police officers to walk the avenue, both to provide a sense of security for the shoppers and also to provide a police presence. We are currently looking at getting some additional funds from the City Council to do some saturation patrol as well. But those items will have limited effect simply because the majority of the young people that are out there are not in violation of any law or ordinance, and so have nothing to fear from police presence. We will not drive them out simply by our presence.
Mm-hmm. So what about next year? This is halfway through the long, hot summer. Do you expect the situation to grow?
Well, we have some alternative plans depending on what the community wants us to do and expects us to do. Any of those alternative plans that might remove the young people's crowd will also, of course, inconvenience shoppers and legitimate users of the avenue as well.
We've been talking with Captain Russ Boers of the Appleton Police Department, taking a further look at the so-called situation on College Avenue. When we return, we're going to be taking a look at home videos that went back 50 years ago. I don't think there's anyone watching this evening who doesn't know what one of these are. It's a standard everyday video cassette. You get them anywhere practically that you go. Convenience stores, gas stations, department stores. Everybody's got one. First run movies, classics, comic strips, sometimes some not so nice pictures. They're all available on video cassette today. And I think the statistics are somewhere like about 1 out of every 5 or 6 homes now has a video cassette, and in the next few years everybody's going to have one. In fact, the growth of the video cassette and home video camera has been so great that even the people who take the television surveys to determine how many people are watching television programs are trying to figure out a way to figure out how many people are watching these little things. In fact, they're beginning to become a threat to live television. Well, I suppose you would say, well, that's progress. That's the way life changes. Not so fast. This is not new at all. It's probably the idea 50, 60 years old. And right now you're saying, hey, wait a minute, you didn't have video cassettes 60 years ago? No, of course you didn't. You had these. Americans like to be entertained. And ever since the movies came out, home movies. Remember these? How many of you people out there remember these ugly old 16mm films that you could get? This one is reel number 18, 16mm, 100 feet, black and white silent atomic bomb. This is what folks used in their homes before the day of the video cassette. And you played it on one of these little mothers. This is an official Kodascope Model G, and it works pretty good. That's circa about 1938, somewhere in there. Home movies, especially when you could belong to a club and get home movies, were quite the vogue late 40s through World War II and that era. And even into the 1950s, the home movie was still pretty big. If you had guests over for dinner, relatives coming to visit, somewhere during the evening, out came the old Kodascope and you showed the home movies. Then after you showed your latest movie of the month, then you tortured everyone. You absolutely tortured everyone with the movies that you shot yourself on your own camera, and this is where you would go for 15 minutes and say, well, there was when Aunt Tilda was picking strawberries and all sorts of good things like that. Tonight, you are in luck. We're going to show you a home movie. This is a home movie of a historic event, or quasi-historic event, that occurred here in Appleton. I don't want to give away too many clues, but this was, I would say, just about 30 years ago this month. I'm going to show you this movie and ask you to put on your thinking caps and see if you can recall the event, who the personalities were, and that's all I'm going to tell you. Is that a familiar looking sight to you, Tom?
Oh, yes.
That's
In Appleton?
Appleton Street, as it looked many years ago.
Yeah.
And let's see, this is a night scene. All those classic cars there.
See the Big Appleton Hotel?
Do you notice something that you don't see today? Neon signs.
Yes. Sticking out over the street.
There's a familiar place.
Oh, yes.
It looks today just like it did then when this was taken. Notice those double old lamps?
Yeah, we haven't seen those in a long while.
No, we haven't. Now, here's an Appleton fire truck. This is an aerial truck going up on the old Balliet Hotel. Do you know what's at the site of the Balliet Hotel right now?
Oh, yes.
City Hall. And they're going up on the roof, and this is a sequence that takes a couple of minutes. If you were there that night, you know what this is all about.
Well, I missed this particular going up there. I was out of town.
You were...
Up in the north in July weather.
Yeah. That's right. That
Pretty close.
was shot just about this time of the year.
Yeah. I was working in the north that summer, but I did hear about it on radio and the newspaper.
Yeah, it was all over. It was quite a big event. Well, now let's see. Oh, there's a newspaperman there with their flashlights, or flash bulbs. They went off like small atomic bombs.
Oh, the big flashing camera was trademark of the profession.
Surprising how things have changed so much in roughly about a generation.
Ah, transistors.
Yeah. Strobe lights. Okay, firemen going on the roof. I will give everybody a clue, though, who was not there at the time. This is not a fire. Okay, that's a daylight scene of what they were going up after, and that's all we're going to see. It's our home movie. Back a few weeks ago, Appleton newspaper reporter Bob Lowe, he works for the Post-Crescent, wrote an interesting article that we would dub a think piece. He called it, "Let's Use Old Buildings Before We Erect New Ones." I think Bob had some real sensible thoughts in the article. For example, he suggests that many of the buildings that have been renovated were buildings that had been slated for being torn down at some point in the past. Here's some of the points that he makes. Outagamie County Board Chairman George Schrader has resurrected the idea of a county sales tax to decrease the property tax, retire debt, and defray some of the expenses associated with a $20 million expansion of the county jail. Outagamie planner Bob Stottle has proposed raising the 30-year-old courthouse and replacing it with a $4 million building that would consolidate several offices. And Outagamie Supervisor Ken Bowman has recommended tearing down the courthouse and its annex and replacing it with a $40 million complex. And Bob continues on. One of the points that caught our attention was a recommendation that the former Appleton teen scene, which has served as various restaurants in the past and has also been a funeral parlor, be used as a site for the new transit center, which the jury is still out on, but may materialize sometime within the next year. It would be about the same size as the building being planned and would save the city probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about $400,000. But Bob also writes in his article, In Kimberly, there's the Eiting Supermarket building on Kimberly Avenue. In Kokana, there's the abandoned Giddings and Lewis plant and the Haas Hardware building downtown, and so forth and so on. So what Bob is suggesting is that this not only be something for the city of Appleton, but could be used community-wide. Well, perhaps one of the finest examples of recycling something is the present project which is going on now at the Columbus School building in downtown Appleton, or rather off downtown Appleton on South Oneida Street. It has a kind of an interesting history. It's the city's oldest school, built in 1893. It wasn't too many years ago when the school board was talking about tearing the structure down. Well, a funny thing happened in the center city. A lot of young couples started moving in, refurbishing the old homes, rebuilding the center neighborhood, and suddenly a school which was scheduled to be torn down is in the process of being recycled. In fact, there's a new addition being put onto it right now. And it's probably one of the best examples of just what you can do with an old building and save a whole lot of money at the same time. Bob also writes, consider some other empty or partly empty buildings that could be put to good use. The former Lincoln Mills and William House Envelope Factory in the Appleton Flats. The former St. Joseph Elementary School north of the county jail. And of course a landmark on Wisconsin Avenue, which would be the former St. Therese School. That's being used for various functions right now, but nothing steady. There's an excellent example of a building that could be recycled into something that could serve the community. And we could go on and on and on. In fact, we had planned at first to show you a bunch of snapshots of various old buildings in town, and I thought, well, why should we do that? You know they're there. It's up to someone to come up with some imagination to put these buildings to good use. We think we can. And there's another way of looking at it. It's going to be preserving a lot of our Appleton heritage. As a matter of fact, Columbus School, which began in the Victorian age, is going to go well into the space age. It's a thing that's called saving your roots. Just when we thought the debacle of last November's congressional election had passed into an obscure history, we recently learned what we've all suspected all along anyway. Senator Robert Caston boldly admitting that he had lied during his bid for the office. Now that doesn't come to his credit. If you recall that election, it probably was one of the sleaziest, lowballing political campaigns that this state has ever witnessed. It appalled many voters to the point that when they went to the ballot, they didn't cast a vote for either Caston nor his opponent, Ed Garvey. This is not a halo fitting for Mr. Garvey. He came to the election in almost a classic carpetbagger type definition. He took a state job thinking that would help skyrocket him into the Senate, and he also played a lot of lowball. And so voters were faced with a ballot choice of mediocrity. Caston's announcement that he told untruths in the campaign to gain the seat simply underscores that as voters, we got the short end of the deal. The bottom line of all of this is that we as voters don't require any future revelations of what we are aware, and that is Ed Garvey should go back to where he came and leave Wisconsin to folks with roots here who understand the Badger State. And we think it would be really neat if Caston took up permanent residency on Fifth Avenue with his New York wife. That's commentary. I'm Walt Kalata.
The Valley TV magazine, The Foxtowner, is seen twice monthly here on CPN 8. Check your Cablevision TV program guide for the next Foxtowner date. If you have a subject idea, you think you should appear on The Foxtowner, or want to express an opinion, call The Foxtowner at 731-9790 any day after 11:30 a.m. Your calls are welcome. This is your announcer, Jim Shador, inviting you to join us again. Foxtowner is a Libra Day presentation. Here's the Foxtowner, the only television magazine in the Valley by and about Valley folks. And now your host, the man who gets around and knows the Valley best, Walt Kalata.
There's a common thread which appears to be running through the Fox Valley. When there's a public event that grabs the common attention, two things begin to happen. Everyone attends the event and turns it into a tailgate party, or everyone attends the event and simply takes it over, turning it into a community-wide happening. Well, the latter is what has happened to the annual art fair, which is sponsored by the Gallery of Arts each summer at City Park. Beginning several years ago as a quaint and a somewhat obscure gathering of people simply interested in art activity, it quickly attracted the public at large, and now the art fair has become a must-attend event of the summer season. In addition to that, it's developing into one of the premier art events in the entire Midwest. With that scenario, we're going to be taking you on a tour of this year's art fair. Now, we're not going to be showing you simply a collage of art objects. Instead, we're going to show you some aspects of the event, in case you attended it, that you may have overlooked. Kind of that old syndrome of not seeing the forest for the trees. Art, it is said, is in the eye of the beholder. And since music is art and an appropriate part of the art fair, and since I happen to particularly enjoy Dixieland music, it holds that we would begin tonight's program with that art form.
This is the Appleton Art Fair. At least that's what the local folks are calling it. There was a time when this was kind of an obscure event that was stuck off in one corner of City Park. But like anything in Appleton that grabs everyone's fancy, it has suddenly grown up into a community-wide event. In fact, this is now one of the premier art shows in the whole Midwest. And you'll find folks from all over the Great Lakes area who are attending here today. We're going to walk around and show you the art fair, just in case you didn't have a chance to be here today. But before we do that, why don't we have some music? People generally think about art. This is what comes immediately to mind, at least in most cases. Pictures. One of the displays at the art fair in Appleton this year. But art can also be in the mind of the beholder. This, too, is art. Jeff Boschert of Appleton. Jeff isn't here right now to be able to explain to us exactly what this is all about, but let's see if we can figure out what this piece of artwork is. First of all, you notice right here, there are no nails. Nowhere. No cement. And now if we can just kind of move over here, notice this angle cut against this beam. This is where the support comes from. Now you can move it, of course. And notice right up here, again, no pegs, no nails. With this kind of engineering, a person could probably build a pyramid. But we think we've figured out how this all goes together. Notice again down here where the supports are. No nails, no pegs, no glue, no cement. In fact, this one here is even a little loose. But it appears, if we can move over this way, here's the secret right here. Now, I don't imagine we want to futz too much with this because we might find ourselves underneath a pile of beams. But if you notice, this rope is attached here against that beam and then comes down and underneath, supporting these beams, which supports all the others, which rests on all the loose stuff that we showed you a moment ago, and this is the secret of holding this piece of work together. Now, I would imagine if we would pull this and let the rope loose, it would all come tumbling down. But despite what seems to be a rather fragile setup, it's pretty solid. You could probably load this in the back of a pickup truck and use it for a summer vacation retreat somewhere. It'd beat hauling a tent around. And it is art, and it's just another example of what you find here at the art fair. We have Midran the Spell Weaver with us right now. And Midran, what kind of spells you... I mean, you really look professional.
I am a very professional wizard. Only good and positive spells that people want. And I do magic for children, but for spells, just the positive and the good spells.
You have a...
this is a staff.
Staff, okay.
Staff, that's right. Staffs are used to draw the magic of the sky and the magic of the earth and pass it through the magician, who acts as a conduit for natural magic.
If I were to touch it, will it pass? Oh, I can.
Can you feel that magic?
Yeah.
Vibrating
I feel
in there?
it, right. Yeah. Get a shot of the head. This is very interesting. Now, this has got to be a wood carving, right?
This was a druid staff, and
a real druid?
That's right, which mean people of the oak. But it lives up to a couple of criteria. For one, this is all one piece of wood. There's no joining of wood. Second of all, until the staff was actually made into a staff by Jessica of Northumberland, it never saw the light of day. It was born and in a way bred in total darkness, because from here on up this is all a root. And so until the staff was actually pulled out of the earth and created, it did not see the light of day.
I would imagine, Midran, that this would also be very good for coaxing stubborn elephants.
I've never tried it on stubborn elephants, never.
You have an amulet?
Yes, these are Celtic. This is also Celtic jewelry, as they wore at that time.
And you have a stone here, obviously
uncut. Some very, very magic crystal also.
What does it do?
Well, it depends what a person wants it to do for them. Sometimes it'll do it, and sometimes it won't.
Okay, now Midran, I'm going to put you to the ultimate test. Now we want to develop a TV show that's going to have fantastic ratings and be in demand all over the country. Could you cast that spell to make that happen?
Sure. It'll take some very special people, though.
It will.
That's right, very special people. But I'll work on it.
All right. Thank you very much, Midran, and go out and cast your spells.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
More coming, so stay tuned to the Foxtowner.
You have an example here of Inca and Navajo art, is that right?
Yes.
What we would normally look at these and say, well, you know, that's an Indian rug, but they're very significant.
Yes, this particular one is a Navajo technique. It's very painstaking, slow process. They double weave. The warp strings are the only ones that do that. So this is all one string that goes back and forth, for example.
Can you show us exactly what the technique is like?
We lay it in string by string like this. Right now this is pretty easy to lay in just one color. But these crosses, for example, to go from there to there took me 2 days. It's very slow and painstaking, a lot of finger work.
How long, for example, will it be before you're done with this particular piece?
Altogether, I figure I'll put in about 200 hours for this one piece.
Well, even at minimum wage, that would bring the price up, wouldn't it?
It would. Most craft work, especially Indian work, never gets the time, or the value is never related to the time that's put into the work. Very few actually get what they put into it.
Well, now, you told us a fascinating story before we began the demonstration here about, I guess it involves the present-day Incas, which are a very ancient people, how they have normally kept much of their artwork to themselves, but now they're in the process of letting it to the outside world. And maybe we could take a walk over to the booth and you could tell us exactly what's involved here. Show us, for example, let's see if I can just get out of the way of the lens there. Show us an example of the Inca, and then, of course, we just saw the Navajo.
Okay. Now these small weavings are done by children that are learning to weave. There aren't many boys in my wife's particular group who go to school. It's very hard for them. They're speaking Quechua, not Spanish. And they start as early as 5 years old weaving these tapestries. Now, this is probably done by 8 or 10-year-olds. You can kind of tell by the technique.
Now, is this a contemporary thing, or is...
No, this particular birds like this or patterns like this are taken from the ancient embroidery. They're specific to my wife's group. They're a small group of about 7,000 Salasaka Quechua. So this pattern is, maybe 400 or 500 years old.
Yeah. Oh, we have some photos here. Can you pick this up, these photos at all? We're throwing a lot of things at our cameraman. He wasn't prepared to do today.
Yeah, this is a child of 4 or 5. No, how old is he, Martina? 6? Under 8. He's under 8, and he's weaving these birds that you just saw. So they start weaving at a very early age. By the time they're adolescents, they can weave very fine things. The best things they do are some of the clothing, the festive clothing, but they don't sell that.
What sort of material is this? Now, this feels like something that's really pretty heavy duty.
It's wool. It's kind of coarse because they finish it by hand and they pull out these little burrs. Your fingernails get real sore, so to clean it perfect would take a long time.
Okay. Could we look at
some of the patterns? This is a pattern that's just from my wife's group. You can tell it's from her group because of the way the man's dressed. The men from her group only wear black ponchos, white pants, and this kind of a hat. And this just shows him in the countryside. The Indian songs are often full of, they celebrate their closeness to the earth and to nature and the birds singing. And they often, as they used to do, they used to travel with a llama and a pack on the llama and play the flute as they traveled. And that's what it shows. And they still, if you go out at night in her area, you'll hear them young men playing flutes as they walk around. So they keep those traditions alive. This one is what they call a dancer that's specific to my wife's group, and all of these things have different meanings. It comes from a pre-Columbian religion that they still keep today. Different groups have their own celebrations, and this one is specific to my wife's group, and it incorporates political protest, festive occasions, and he's also a shamanistic kind of magical protective figure.
So actually, what we're seeing here is a story as well as a design that you might just simply like to look at.
Yes, all of these things mean things. The bird, for example, here's the pictures of the real dancers too, if you want to see them.
As long as we're being daring here today, let's see if we can get that.
If you can get that, it might glare a little bit.
But these are the dancers.
Yes, for example, that bird that he has in his hand now, part of their festive, during the festivities, they'll walk to a town where there are Latinos, they're conquerors, and they let the birds loose in front of a church. It's part of a political protest that's incorporated into the festival that is a way of saying you haven't really conquered us yet, we still have our own religion. So all of these things have different meanings.
Well now, and you have an example of what I suspect, I may not be using the right terminology, but I would say contemporary Indian art.
Oh, sure, there's some, my brother-in-law, he does, now this is from a Matisse. He does all kinds of things on request. A lady had asked him to do.
What's the symbolism now behind this piece?
This is called Icarus Falling, Matisse's cutouts, and he's taken it from that. If he had done a design that he invented it himself, he would have signed it, but this one he didn't because it's from the Matisse. And
you mentioned earlier that this artwork has generally been kept pretty much a closed circuit, but now it's being allowed to come out. What is the reason for that?
Well, normally they're farmers. They just grow their own food and make their own clothing, but they're running out of land now. My wife's group in particular, at this point, the land is divided every generation between the children, the boys, and the girls. So the parcels get smaller and smaller, and they've gotten to a point recently where they can't subsist on what they're growing to eat. So they've been turning to weaving to sell to outsiders. Normally they wouldn't sell to outsiders.
Has it been generally accepted? Is it popular?
Well, it's starting to be. They didn't have much access to a market. My wife and her brother are the only ones from her group in this country. And they asked us to start selling things. We were studying at the University of Wisconsin. They knew she was up here, and so we started doing this on weekends.
Could we meet your wife?
Sure. Martina.
Would you like to introduce us to Martina?
Sure. This is Martina Masakisa.
Martina?
Hi.
She's from Ecuador, from the Central Highlands.
Is this the first time now that you've been in this country, or have you been here before?
Not in this particular town.
Okay.
This is the first time that I have been here.
Okay.
But
And you've had a lot of people that have come through so far today. How are they reacting to the work that you're showing here?
I think they are very pleased that we have new things here. from all other places.
How do your people, now your husband explained to us what the situation has been. How do your people feel now about bringing your work to the outside?
They would like to sell as much as they could because they are really needy people.
Well, they're smart people, too. They want to sell as much as they can.
Yes, they do really need to some buyers because we are not living in near downtown or near big cities or anything. Our people have to travel very far, long distance to find the cities where they can sell in cities and stores, or where this in galleries, or somebody who can buy. But they don't buy a whole thing. They will just buy 1 or 2 pieces for whole day trip. So it's when I go there, usually I go to see them what they are working and what is the best for the American taste here. So they work all together.
Tony, you mentioned that you're both studying at the university now.
Yes, we're graduate students in social work at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Do you plan to be going to Ecuador now?
Yes, we hope to go down. We're going to try to write some grant proposals and go down and do some work there. We're both learning what we can about technical information that might be helpful to the weavers. So we're spending a lot of time doing this now.
I want to thank you for taking time with us. This has been one of our more interesting stops today. We could spend several hours touring the art fair and not show it all. If you missed it this year, why not make plans to attend next summer? We want to especially thank Don Worden of Appleton for being our cameraman. The taping of this event, his help was priceless. There are some things which are not supposed to happen in River City. Only other places that we read about in the papers, watch on TV, hear about on the radio. Things like earthquakes, floods, Legionnaire's disease. Now, this is supposed to belong somewhere else. But here it was, right here. A big headline. The bug, if that's what it is, came here to town. The only place that it's been before this, at least in our neighborhood, has been Sheboygan. Well, whenever the melody strikes, it appears that cooling systems are involved. There always appears to be a fatality somewhere down the line, indicating that this just isn't one of those simple summer colds that we're dealing with. Terry Brandenburg is Appleton's health officer. When diseases become a community problem, and that can be almost all the time, it's Terry's office that's called into play. Terry, tell us about the situation with Legionnaire's disease in Appleton. I suspect this came as a surprise. We haven't heard a lot about it recently, and then suddenly there it is.
Well, basically we haven't seen any cases in Appleton before. This is the first case. But in terms of it not being in Appleton or in the Appleton area, by and large, there have been cases in the area and surrounding counties. In fact, actually 44 of the 72 counties have had cases since 1980. It is something that certainly concerns us, and we mobilize very quickly when we do get a report of it.
Let's try and put this into a focal point. Where do we find Legionnaire's disease as a rule, or do we find it as a rule? And I'm thinking in the background that there always seems to be a water tower or a water charged cooling system that appears to be involved.
They're implicated an awful lot in most of the outbreaks that you do see. First of all, the Legionnaire's bacteria is quite ubiquitous. It's found everywhere in nature. It's a common soil organism. And if you look hard enough, you undoubtedly will find the bacteria. It only becomes a problem, however, when it gets into the right environment and it's able to grow and prosper and multiply to very large numbers, very many bacteria per liter.
Has it been determined yet what the mechanism is that gives it this potential?
There's a lot of factors involved in its growth that really aren't known. High temperature is one indicator of favorable growth.
Like we've had, of course, this past summer.
Yeah, or the temperature of the environment. The water that it is in, it grows best at temperatures greater than 95 degrees Fahrenheit.
Let me just interject a question, and I don't mean to frighten anyone and turn the community into a hypochondriac situation, but aside from the fact that these air conditioning systems and water cooling towers appear to be involved, could an environmental system exist in, let's say, a private home that could contribute to this?
There's been some research into the Legionnaire's bacteria being found in water systems, such as in shower heads, etc. But by and large, most of the cases, when they are investigated, end up going back pointing towards something like a cooling tower. And I guess the reasons are because of the very warm temperatures, 95 degrees or greater, the effect that that the earth in some way is disturbed, the dust and so forth, the bacteria from nature gets into the cooling towers, and the conditions are favorable for its growth.
So the type of bacteria that's involved has been positively identified as far as science, the medical people are concerned?
Pretty much so. It's rather difficult to grow, but it can be grown and can be identified. We don't know all the causal factors as to why it grows to those high populations. We've got general indicators. Like as I mentioned before, cooling towers seem to be indicated. However, just the fact that there's Legionella in the cooling tower certainly may not cause disease. In fact, many of us have been exposed to the Legionnaires bacteria during the course of our lives. But there are certain risk factors which predispose certain individuals to actually getting disease.
This might be a naive type of question, but it seems as though we did not hear about Legionnaire's disease until back a few years ago, when there was in fact an American Legion convention where a number of people were affected by this illness. Now we hear more about it, and as we said earlier in our introduction, it's here in River City. Is this a recent strain of bacteria that has developed, or has it always been around and we just haven't had it identified this way before?
You know, my guess is that it's something that's always been around. Many times you'll have seen pneumonia occurring for no apparent cause, and it's probably has been passed off as viral pneumonia. When in reality, if you went back in time and did tissue sampling or testing, you would probably would have found the Legionnaire's bacteria. It's something that's been around for some time, and it took some technological changes to allow us to grow it and identify it. It's a very hard. It didn't grow on normal cultures or normal procedures. But when we talk about the reason we haven't seen, you know, hundreds and hundreds of cases, even though the bacteria is spread throughout nature, is that first of all you need an environment where there are large numbers. Secondly, the bacteria has to become airborne.
I was going to ask that. Is it an airborne bacteria?
Yeah. Well, not naturally, but when it becomes aerosolized in water droplets, such as from a cooling tower blower, it becomes inhaled, and then if you are predisposed to contracting the disease, the pneumonia does set in. And by predisposing, certain individuals are at higher risk than others of getting disease.
I read in one of the newspaper articles, apparently smokers, for example, seem to be somewhat at risk of this.
Smokers, you know, have a much higher risk than non-smokers of getting illness. And you know, smoking, I guess it's just one more nail in smoking's coffin in terms of the diseases it causes. You know, if it's not the cardiovascular disease or the lung cancer, it'll probably be the Legionella that gets you.
Well, now, let's talk for just a moment about the disease itself. And again, we don't want to give everyone the feeling that they are all terribly susceptible to it. And I know when you go through symptoms of an illness, it's not too unusual people to suddenly grab themselves and say, oh my God, that's what I've got. You know. But could you tell us a little bit about what some of the symptoms are? And what do you do about it when you think that you've been exposed to this?
Well, I think first of all, the initial symptoms are pretty much a loss of appetite, weakness, perhaps some body ache, headache, and a rather abrupt fever that within a day will reach perhaps 102 to 105 degrees with chills. There may be some abdominal pain or diarrhea. And from that you see the progression to pneumonia, fluid in the lungs, and it doesn't normally respond to the normal antibiotic treatment.
But take one aspirine, call me tomorrow type of approach won't work.
I don't know if you'll make it to tomorrow. Because, generally, erythromycin works very good if it's started in a timely fashion. Unfortunately, many times the treatment regimens for the typical pneumonia is not erythromycin, and that's why you find that it's not working and then have to finally shift to erythromycin, and it may be too late. It carries a fairly high case fatality rate or ratio of about 19%. That means 19% of the individuals who contract the disease
From the onset of the disease
will die.
to the point where you should be hospitalized or receive treatment, how much of a time span does a person have to work with?
There's a lot of individual variability in terms of how quickly people progress to a pneumonia-type condition.
And that pneumonia is where you get run into trouble with it.
Yeah, when it progresses to pneumonia, that's where the danger lies, naturally. But there's predisposing factors. Smoking, as you mentioned, is one. People who are immune compromised certainly are more susceptible. Those who are on chemotherapy, perhaps for cancer treatment, and also the elderly. The elderly, by and large, are more susceptible to a number of diseases because their resistance is down. Their immune systems just aren't working properly.
Terry, I think that covers it pretty well, unless you have something more to add. And then I have a quick question for you that doesn't have anything to do with Legionnaire's disease.
Okay, I'll just throw in one quick one. We feel that this was an isolated incident, a one-time event that occurred in mid-July. We have not seen any subsequent cases, and therefore, given the amount of data, and we've done some very substantial surveillance of hospital admissions and also work absenteeism, and we've not found or heard of any other cases, we feel it's a one-time event that occurred in mid-July, and we are not seeing it repeated, and we're not seeing any ongoing threat or danger.
And that, of course, is encouraging in itself. If you just tuned in, Terry Brandenburg, Appleton Health Officer, is our guest. And Terry, we do have one other quick question. And again, this has to do with health threats. Just recently, the report on the incidence of radon in the state of Wisconsin. You go a few miles north of Appleton, and it appears that it's a potential threat. Under the conditions of which it becomes a threat, which is normally a closed-in house, very tightly sealed and insulated home. And I know that earlier this year, your office was involved in a brief survey of Appleton as far as radon is concerned. What have you learned? Do you have anything to report?
Okay, we participated in an EPA study to check on a predetermined list to check homes for radon gas. We have not in any way seen a compilation of the data coming back to Appleton. I believe the EPA has released statewide figures, and we've not seen anything specific for Appleton. Certainly when they do come in, we can share them with your viewers.
Be happy to have those.
Okay.
Terry Brandenburg, Appleton Health Officer, our guest on the Foxtowner for this evening. And that is the Foxtowner, and I'm Walt Kalata.
The Valley TV magazine, The Foxtowner, is seen twice monthly here on CPN 8. Check your Cablevision TV program guide for the next Foxtowner date. If you have a subject idea, you think you should appear on The Foxtowner, or want to express an opinion, call the Foxtowner at 731-9790 any day after 11:30 a.m. Your calls are welcome. This is your announcer, Jim Shador, inviting you to join us again. Foxtowner is a Libra Day presentation.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of CPN 8 or Cablevision of the Fox Cities.
Here's the Foxtowner, the only television magazine in the Valley by and about Valley folks. And now your host, the man who gets around and knows the Valley best, Walt Kalata.
Entertainment and the recent harmonic convergence are the two focal points of our gathering this evening. And unlikely as it may seem, the two topics do have something in common. They are recent trends. I'm Walt Kalata, this is the Foxtowner, and tonight our guests are Bob O'Donnell. Bob is the publisher of the recently launched weekly newspaper called Streets. Now, Streets is an entertainment paper which is devoted strictly to what's going on in the Valley, And judging from what we saw of the newspaper when it first came out, I think it was back in January, and the most recent issue, well, it appears that Streets is taking on and starting to become a part of the Valley regularly. Now, we're going to talk with Bob in a moment about the kind of events that Streets is reporting on. Also with us is Lisa Bjornson of Appleton, and she recently came to the public eye in connection with the so-called harmonic convergence, which we all read about in the news. It's a buzzword of believers who feel that we are probably at the doorstep of a new cosmic age. And it was observed recently in a two-day event all across the country and here as well. It's supposed to be launching of a sort of cleansing that will prepare Earth for contact with alien intelligence come the 21st century. And we'll be talking with our guests when we come back.
Please volunteer for the American Red Cross.
First this evening, we'll be talking with Bob O'Donnell, the publisher of Streets. And Bob, knowing something of the publishing business, probably not as much as you since you are actually into it, but having a smattering of knowledge, I would say that anyone who wants to get into the publication business, first of all, has to be a little crazy.
It helps.
And secondly, you either have to have a lot of money or a lot of hope.
Well, I think at this point we got a little bit of both. More hope than money sometimes, but both.
I noticed, though, when you first came out, you were a little sparse on the advertising end. Now you're looking pretty good. This would tell me, from media experience, that apparently the Streets is being accepted by the public.
Well, we found that readership-wise, we've had an unbelievable response from the community.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons we started the paper was we thought there was kind of a lack of information on what to do in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And from that standpoint, we can't seem to keep up with the paper. We're getting more and more people calling for the paper, more and more readership, and slowly but surely the business community is starting to catch up to where the consumer already is.
What is the long-term thrust as far as you're concerned? Are you going to ultimately become a full arts, entertainment, music review for the Valley and eastern Wisconsin?
Yeah, what we're really aiming for is to become the first regional paper in northeastern Wisconsin. We take a little bit different view than most traditional print media in that we look upon our subject area, our coverage area, as the entire northeastern Wisconsin area.
Is this your circulation area right now? Are you all...
No, our circulation area right now is in a four-county area surrounding the Fox cities and Oshkosh. But even there we're being non-traditional.
What is that in terms of circulation? Must be, what, 25, 30,000?
Well, right now we're at about 18,000.
Okay. Well, that's a big enough printing bill to pay every week.
It's plenty. Well, the thing is, at least at that rate, it makes us, we like to say we're the largest independently owned newspaper in Neenah, Menasha.
That's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
What sort of a staff are you working with?
Well, we rely heavily on freelancers. One of the things that we were looking for to get more community news and to get more local stories was we would rely on people, the average person who enjoys writing in their spare time.
Are you getting that kind of response?
Oh, yes. We have over 90 people that are working with us on a freelance basis right now. And they're supplementing material that we're getting from the LA Times Syndicate, and also a lot of the community organizations in the arts and entertainment have been very cooperative in providing information to us.
It would seem to me that if you've got 90 people, more or less, working for you, that the time's going to come when you're going to run out of space for all of these people.
Well, fortunately, only 4 of us fit in the office. Okay.
That helps.
Yeah, that helps. And really that's, we've got a hardcore dedicated staff of 4 people right now. And although you introduced me as the publisher, I also happen to be the editor, I also happen to be the lead writer, and on Monday mornings I'm the janitor.
I can well understand that because I started part of my career as a publisher of a weekly newspaper too. And let's see, I did all of those, plus I worked in the back shop on the presses, set some type, you know. And finally, after a period of insanity, I left it. I hope that you had more perseverance.
That and a good shrink.
Yeah.
So, but no.
One of the things we wanted to get your views on, Bob, and this is going to be kind of an ongoing thing as far as the Foxtowner is concerned, and that includes, that happens to involve the trends that are happening in Valley entertainment. And I can recall, it's not too many years ago either, when a big weekend in the Valley, in town, was probably a fish fry at the VFW Club. Maybe you went out and played cards somewhere. If you were really into it, maybe some golf. You went to the show. If you had the energy, you'd go to the ballroom down the street and dance to a polka band. That used to be about the full extent of entertainment in the Valley. Now it's changed completely around, and very quickly too. I mean, we have improvs now, and live music is common everywhere. Rock, the bands in many cases are very good. It's changing on the radio. I would assume that being all that you are with the streets, that you've got some views on these, especially since you have to comment and pass on them from time to time.
Well, the thing is, with the entertainment industry, as we know it in the Fox Cities right now, really the question is, in my mind, is whether it's improving or if it's just evolving. You mentioned that we now have improv comedy, both in Appleton and in Oshkosh. And that's something relatively new, and it's caught on with many people. But one of the things when I originally came to the Valley several years ago that it was known for was jazz.
Yeah.
Live jazz music was something that was unique to the Valley.
And it seems like that's on the decline, or has kind of passed out of the
Really,
picture.
it's declined almost to the point now where there's only one club really offering any type of regular jazz program.
What do you think it is? Do we tend in the Valley to be kind of shoot from the hip trendy in what we like in entertainment? And I'm saying that keeping another thing in mind too, the various type of night spots, bars if you will in some cases, that have mushroomed very quickly and then faded from the scene almost as fast as they came, but yet they were the place to be for whatever period of time.
Well, to a point, the flash-in-the-pan establishment is still there, but really in the past 2 or 3 years, we've seen 1 or 2 places here in the Valley come to dominate the nightlife. There's one complex in the downtown area that really has drawn off the crowds of a lot of other businesses. And in a way, it's good. It brought in things like the improv comedy from the national circuit, made Appleton a stop for young rising comics. But on the other hand, it took away a lot of the audience for the local bands, whether they be jazz, whether they be rock, whether they be polka. It drew a lot of the people away from those places, so that it's become tougher than ever to keep a to keep a tavern, to keep a bar going, let alone still be able to afford live music.
How about the disco joints? Are they still hanging on? Is that still popular in the Valley?
Well, you're going to have to, it depends what you define as disco. The dance places became fewer and fewer. They are somewhat on the rise, whether they're as materialistic orientated as they used to be. That's questionable.
I guess what I'm thinking of is the place that has the plexiglass floor, and all the flashing lights. And
if you've got your heart set on it, there's there, and one recently opened. And one of the points that the new owners made, that he was going to preserve the old image of the dance floor.
Well, does this mean then that we are actually, you used the term kind of an evolution, was that at the beginning? Are we actually evolving, just learning, really discovering things in the Valley for the first time, and we think they're great?
Well, my view of that is I think we're becoming more, we're following national trends. We've become less individualistic, less regional. They say on TV that none of us have true Midwestern accents anymore because we watch too much TV.
Sure.
I think in some way that's true of what we expect out of entertainment in the Fox Cities. The more we're exposed to national trends, the more we demand it locally,
rather than being satisfied with something individualistic.
Bob O'Donnell has been our guest, our first guest for this evening, and Bob, we'll be looking forward to having you, we hope, back again on future programs, and we go into more detail on some of these things. In just a few moments, we're going to be meeting with Lisa Bjornson, and we're going to be talking about the harmonic convergence.
How do you talk to a teenage boy who thinks he invented sex? You want to say, how do you think you got here, the stork? You think the stork brought you? Well, I got news. I just remember how hard it was to talk to my old man about the big things. And how easy it was to make a big mistake. I really don't want it to be like that for my son. Do you?
This is the Valley's TV magazine, the Foxtowner.
Harmonic convergence was the big thing in the news back over the past weekend, and Lisa Bjornson of Appleton is here to tell us more about that. Lisa, thanks a lot for being with us here this evening.
You're welcome, Walt.
You know, when I think of the word harmonic convergence, that sounds like something really heavy, and I have a whole lot of images that start conjuring up in my mind. I can apply that to almost everything from the very fine setting of hi-fi speakers to something that sounds very cosmic. Mm-hmm. And I guess cosmic is the thing. So we don't get off the deep end and onto the wrong track. Tell us just exactly what is the definition of harmonic convergence, and just where do we go from there?
Well, I don't think that I can give an accurate, precise definition of what harmonic convergence is, because it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. There are several different prophecies that converge on this time, and specifically the dates August 16th and 17th, 1987. But what I can do is share with you my truth and my understanding, and what I picked from all the different prophecies as being important.
Okay,
for people to learn from at this time.
That sounds like that would be real interesting. Before we do that, though, I would like to know, what is it that interested you in something like this? And are we talking about something that's religious, scientific, purely philosophy? Can you give us a pigeonhole like that to work with?
Well, I learned about it about 2 months ago, and the thing that interested me in it was that it was several different religions, traditions, philosophies coming together and getting beyond their differences and celebrating some commonality. That's what interested me in it. The second part of your question was?
Well, whether this is tied in with science, philosophy.
I think it's tied in with everything. It's tied in with religion and spirituality, which I think are different.
Yeah.
And in philosophy and science, all three.
Okay. You said you had some prophecies, some things that you consider to be your truths that you wanted to share with us. Why don't you do that?
Okay, I'll do that. So all of the different prophecies, and there were many, all spoke of some common things. One was the need for us to deepen our relationship with humanity, the earth, and the heavens. And as far as humanity, to realize that despite our differences, that we've got some common needs if we're going to survive. And that we need to get beyond those differences and work on issues together.
Is this more or less in the role of, I'm thinking of that song that was popular back about a year ago, We Are the World, you know, and everybody coming together and joining hands, and then there were some of these situations where they tried to have the hand-holding procession all across the country. This all kind of tie in with that?
I think more and more people are realizing that we need to look more globally at issues, because the issues that we face these days are global. Nuclear war, ecology, world hunger, and on the list goes. And also the other part of it was that to realize that our diversity is our strength. that in nature, the more diverse an ecosystem is, the greater the chance that it will survive. And I think that's the same with humanity.
Lisa, I have a couple of newspaper articles here that I'd like to just run through very quickly, and maybe you could offer us some comments. One is, as I said before the program, of a serious nature, where it's a straight reporting job. And then Tom Richards of the Post-Crescent has one where he has a little fun. I guess that's all right, to have some humor. This Associated Press article reads, it says that more than 20,000 believers in a new cosmic age gathered at mountains, parks, and ancient religious sites to celebrate the harmonic convergence with humming and hugging peace activists, spiritualists, and the Latter-day Flower Children. All brought their own expectations to the two-day event, which is kind of what I think you said, that everybody has kind of their own interpretation a little bit. Maybe you could explain to us the reason for a lot of these gatherings. For example, you participated in one at the Bubolt's Preserve, where there was a gathering of, I believe the newspaper report said something like about 100 people. What did you do? Was it kind of like a prayer vigil, or just a gathering, or just people getting together?
You'd like to know what we did specifically over there?
Yeah.
Well, we went over the various prophecies. We read the different prophecies because there was a lot of questions as to what it was all about. We used a Native American ritual to create a sacred space by honoring the four directions and the four elements.
Okay, now let's pause as we go with some of these definitions here. You use the term sacred space. What is a sacred space?
I think anything is a sacred space.
Okay.
You know, there are places that are known as very sacred spaces.
Yeah.
But I think that any place is a sacred space.
Okay.
So create
kind of a focal point, something like that? All right.
And then we all took a few minutes to just go inside and to create a collective energy in the room. And we did that by visualizing ourselves as a tree and our many branches intertwined with each other.
Kind of reaching out like to others, okay.
And then we sang. We had Annalise Scully, a local folk singer, there, and she led everyone in song. We then did a meditation where we meditated on the various qualities that the harmonic convergence focuses in on. And those were light, love, peace, harmony, courage, and joy. So with each one of those things, we just gave everyone an opportunity to just spend some time contemplating each one of those and then think about how they could manifest those qualities in their own life.
Let's look at the other side of the story now as it's been reported. Tom wrote in his article, he says, I was there a few minutes before the vision converged. At first only heard it, a strangely familiar voice saying something out loud that sounded like, I'm sure you read this article here.
I didn't read that article.
Oh, you didn't?
I just heard about it today.
Okay, well, if the Post-Crescent has a voice of humor at all, Tom, is it, have you received any kidding about this at all, or people come to you and say, well, Lisa, what are you up to, and all that sort of stuff?
Sure.
Have you had that? You handle it okay?
I handle it fine. I think that a lot of those comments come out of ignorance, that people, when they make fun of it, don't truly have an understanding of what it's all about, or they make judgments.
Without knowing.
Without knowing. You know, like the UFO thing is something that is raised a lot.
Yeah.
And
but you're serious about all this.
I'm very serious about all this, you bet.
Okay. Where are we going with harmonic convergence? Are we... is it something we're going to hear more about in the future? Are we reaching for a goal? I say we, the collective people who are involved. Is there something ahead that everyone is now actually looking forward to?
Well, yeah, I think there is. I think that we need to start working more in a cooperative way together, and like I said, to understand and appreciate our commonality. And I think what is happening is an awakening of a lot of people on an individual level. and that eventually it's something that society is going to grab, and I think it is grabbing. I think it's that our change in viewing ourselves is a necessary one based on our environment right now.
Lisa, I want to thank you very much for joining us and telling us more about harmonic convergence, and if we ever have any questions about this in the future, you know who we're going to call. You always have a welcome at the Foxtowner program. I'll be back with today's commentary right after this.
You can sit on Daddy's lap. It's just a short trip.
He's wet.
You know, accidents can happen even on short trips. Hey! Honey, that's not safe. Thanks, Mom.
Click. I'll be your safety belt.
Dad, you're not a safety belt. Why did you put him in the safety seat? Great idea, Mom. Better make those straps snug. Hey, pal, don't your folks know car accidents kill more of us than any disease? Get that kid a safety seat. Well, at least you guys know what's important. Me.
Now, stay tuned for the Foxtowner commentary.
To put it mildly, affairs at the courthouse in Appleton are becoming curiouser and curiouser. You would think that once a referendum election was held on a public issue, that the results of that ballot decision would become a mandate on elected officials. But not at the Outagamie Courthouse in Appleton, where it appears the most polished skill is the practice of ignoring the public. Here's our case. When a proposal for a county sales tax was raised just a little over a year ago, the issue went to the referendum election, where it was soundly defeated, probably by one of the largest margins in local voting history. Now, the matter should have died right there, but not at the courthouse. Once again, the issue of a county sales tax is being resurrected. And of course, that's contrary to the voters' mandate. Now, originally, when the proposal came up, that tax was going to be used to reduce local property taxes. That's always a good buzzword to use when you want to start a new tax. But the voting public knew a lot better. Now, one of the new uses for that proposed new tax funding, if it should come about, is to finance a proposed $19 million jail project, or at least that would be one of the projects. Well, just looking at that issue alone, I find that a little bit offensive. You know, that's all that we need as a voting and a tax-paying public, is to pay a tax to pay for a jail. It's not very good public relations or thinking. And I suppose, to stretch a point, if you didn't collect or pay the tax, it would mean that you would go in that jail. Well, that may not be as far-fetched as it sounds. You know, it wasn't too long ago in this area when you could be arrested and go to jail because you didn't pay a parking ticket. It happened. And it makes one wonder if, at that bottom line, if maybe too many people are being put in jail and who really don't belong there. Again, not too far-fetched. Let's take a look at Milwaukee County. A study was made there some time ago of the reason people were going to the Milwaukee County Jail. The researchers discovered an interesting thing. 35% of the people incarcerated were behind bars for reasons that did not involve criminal activity, nor did the issues represent an offense to society. Now, that's meandering a little bit from the point, which is that everyone knowledgeable in the area of taxation is pointing out the ability of the public, particularly the property-owning public, to pay and absorb more taxation has long passed. The public isn't electing people to public office to hear them cry about how hard it is to cope with the issues. If it's too hot in the kitchen, the solution is get out. Maybe someone else is out there with an approach which is not designed to put a guilt trip on the taxpayer. That's commentary. That's the Foxtowner. I'm Walt Kalata.
The Valley TV magazine, The Foxtowner, is seen twice monthly here on CPN 8. Check your Cablevision TV program guide for the next Foxtowner date. If you have a subject idea, you think you should appear on the Foxtowner, or want to express an opinion, call the Foxtowner at 731-9790 any day after 11:30 a.m. Your calls are welcome. This is your announcer, Jim Shador, inviting you to join us again. Foxtowner is a Libra Day presentation.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of CPN 8 or Cablevision of the Fox Cities.
A presidential hopeful comes to town, hoping to sow those seeds that turn to party support and then into votes. I'm Walt Kalata. This is the Foxtowner, and on this edition, we'll take a summer's end look at all of those crowds on College Avenue.
Here's the Foxtowner, the only television magazine in the Valley by and about Valley folks. And now your host, the man who gets around and knows the Valley best, Walt Kalata.
When it comes to the heavy artillery, it appears that both parties are lacking at this point as the troops begin to mount for the coming campaigns. Ronald Reagan has been the superstar, and to borrow a bromide, it's going to be a hard act to follow. That doesn't mean that all of the understudies aren't out there trying. The scene has come here to Foxtown. Kansas Senator Robert Dole came to town recently, hosting a press conference where he said nothing spectacular, sounding cautiously political. But then that's to be expected. Did he excite any imagination? Probably none other than the usual party groupies who are enamored by any political who comes to town with a name, a mentality that's not unlike football fans who hang out by the locker room door after the ball game. But come to town he did, Robert Dole. Well, we're going to spend a few minutes this evening at the Dole press conference. And from what you can see, you'll be able to draw your own conclusions about the man who wants to become the most powerful political figure in the world. And we'll do that right after this.
Every day you're hearing something new about AIDS. A lot of what you're hearing simply isn't true. For instance, a lot of people think you can get AIDS from donating blood. The simple fact is, you can't. Today, all blood is carefully tested for AIDS virus antibodies. Blood that tests positive is discarded. Don't believe the rumors, believe the facts.
Rumors are spreading faster than AIDS. For more information, write the American Red Cross.
I want to be America's candidate, large order.
1976, Senator, they were accusing you of being insensitive with some of your comments. They say you've got a biting tongue, you've got callous wit.
I try to keep people awake. Well, I'm going to miss a lot of good opportunities. A lot of things I think I'd like to say, but I'm going to keep them and write a book afterwards. But in 1976, as some may remember, we were about 30 points behind. We left Kansas City. We had 9 weeks to try to make up the difference. And I remember President Ford saying, as he did in his book, Bob Dole went into the briar patch and I went into the rose garden. And I did my job the best I could. I went out there trying to keep Carter off balance and keep Mondale and Carter responding to some of my criticisms. But this is a different campaign. I'm the boss. I'm running for president. I set the tone of the campaign. And it's much, much different.
Is Senator going to continue to be there, or?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, people don't lose their sense of humor. But I never, as long as it's self-deprecating, you aim it at yourself, people aren't going to be offended. Yeah, I don't think I'm just going to shut it off. I mean, it's pretty dull. Get up at an 8 o'clock breakfast. You got to get people awake before, get a little coffee and then make a speech.
Has the recent problems encountered by the Reagan administration hurt the Republican Party in this coming in the 88 rate?
in the Iran-Contra hearings?
Yes, amongst others.
I think the biggest problem Ronald Reagan has had has been losing the Republican Senate. When we lost the Senate, he lost the place to go with his agenda, and now the agenda is sent by Robert Byrd, Majority Leader, and by Jim Wright, the Speaker of the House. I don't fault them for that. They have, they're in control. They set the agenda. I don't think the Iran-Contra thing has been that damaging. It's certainly not a plus. But the American people tend to move on to the next event. The next event's going to be the Bork nomination, maybe arms control, maybe the budget battle. But I don't really believe that the Iran-Contra thing is going to be much of a factor in 1988.
So the last year, when Hart gets back into the race, what effect will that have on the program?
Well, it won't have any as far as I know. I'm going to keep running. I'm not going to drop out if he gets back in.
Should he get back in?
Keep on running, and I don't think he'll get in. My own guess, but he has the right to do what he wants.
You would advise him not to get in?
Well, I don't try to give other candidates advice. I would agree if they don't try to give me advice. A lot of them do, but I just do not get into the Democratic effort. We've got enough problems on our side.
Two of the last three Republican presidents have had problems with ethics questions, ethics issues. What's the problem that Republicans run into that so often? And what would you do differently in standing in the White House than what the Republican presidents have done?
I think a lot of times, I don't want to debate the question, but it's always Democratic Congresses investigating Republicans. And I remember we tried to investigate some of the Democrats standing in Towns and Parkfield. We didn't have enough votes to get it going. So I think there's always a little bit of a partisan edge there. But I think the Iran-Contra hearings were not partisan. I think they were very objective. I joined Senator Byrd in establishing the committee. I don't know in a government as big as we have, if there's any way any president can ensure whether he's a Democrat or Republican, or she's a Democrat or Republican, that no one will ever get in trouble. But I think your people around you, the cabinet officials, you ought to be able to be fairly certain of that. And I'd say one thing about Bob, don't have any rich cronies around that I have to take care of. I'll be a free agent if I'm nominated. I'll be my own person. And I'll select the people based on public officials. I think he's done an outstanding job, and I think Congress stands a little review in some of these cases. I know some members of Congress say they ought to spend all the money in the trust fund. Well, it's up to Congress to make that judgment, not the Secretary of Transportation. She's done a good job, and airline safety's got to be a priority. Everybody in this room has probably been on an airplane the last 6 months. And you want to arrive safe. And I think the things she's doing yesterday and last week, last month, 6 months ago are all aimed in that direction. So let's face it, again, everybody wants to leave at the same time and arrive at the same time and not have any wait. And I don't know how we're going to work all that. We can build more airports and make it even get more planes in the air. So I think we may have to insist that airlines stay on schedule and maybe not have quite as many flights.
You offer 2 or 3 specific issues where you have major differences with Ronald Reagan. Things that...
Well, I think Ronald Reagan's not running. I'm going to be running against, or not against, but for...
Some of the Bush's presidents support the president.
Well, you're not going to have support. The president's going to be different. Now, I just think I have to run on, I can't run around and say, well, vote for me because I'm against Ronald Reagan on this issue. I would say agriculture is one area where I have a different view than the administration. I come from a farm state, and I think, many farmers are a little better off today than they were 3 or 4 years ago, primarily because of the 1985 Farm Bill. Now, that's one that the president was not enthusiastic about, but he did sign it. So you say, oh, well, we had a disagreement of sorts, but not
What specifically would you do for farmers?
Well, I think you'll see my fingerprints all over the 85 Farm Bill. I have to believe in any farm state, whether it's dairy or soybeans or corn or wheat or cotton or rice or peanuts or whatever, whether people are Democrats or Republicans in small towns, on the farm, I'm going to have a lot of support. I've been on the Ag Committee 27 years. I understand agriculture. I don't know all the answers. It's hard to write a perfect farm bill. You have to consider all the other countries who may raise the same commodity and all the other problems in the world. Agriculture is very important to America, important to consumers, and obviously it's a way of life for a lot of people. We're not going to end farm programs in the foreseeable future.
You say that your friends went all over that 85 bill. Specifically, if you were in the White House in 1989, what specifically would you propose as a farm bill then? What would you do to be helping farmers?
Well, I might want to extend the one we have with certain modifications. I don't know that it's not a year and a half, only the second year of a 5-year farm bill. But I believe in a market-oriented program. I believe in a more aggressive export. We've got an export division in the farm bill. But I think essentially, I like that marketing laws for wheat, beef, grains. I like to do a few other things, but I think right now, the dairy people got a crop in January, and there's going to be a 50% cut in support rates. I don't think that will happen.
The Persian Gulf further intensified today. How would President Dole do this?
What added that?
There were more Iranian attacks on ships.
Well, Iran's supposed to decide by the end of the week whether or not they're going to abide by the ceasefire. That would be the best solution. If not, then I think we ought to have the UN take further action against the sanctions, sometime against Iran. If they would abide by the ceasefire, we wouldn't have any problem. The one thing I would do if I were president, I would shut off any oil purchases from Iran by Americans. From my understanding, we're buying about 180,000 barrels of oil a day from Iran. That amounts to about $3 million a day, about $1 billion a year. And I don't know of any reason we ought to be supporting their economy. We ought to be making it as tough as we can on them. And suggesting that we ought to prohibit anybody in this country buying any oil from Iran. That's one little step that would hurt their pocketbook.
Robert Dole is not the first presidential candidate to come to town. The list is long. John Kennedy was here in a time which is now history, but it was just about this time of the year. Former President Richard Nixon visited several times, and we even shook hands with Spiro Agnew. Remember that name? Hubert Humphrey gave us a copy of his favorite soup recipe. We liked it, we tried it. And the list continues on and on. If we had our druthers, as a journalist, we'd like to see Jesse Jackson come to town. I'd hope that the vice president would not. After all, he once headed the CIA, and we know what that kind is like. If it sounds like we're not very excited at this point about the presidential hopefuls from either side, you're right. After all, the presidential hopeful who visited town recently hasn't even officially announced yet. The cycle isn't right, it would appear, to have that glamorous type of presidential candidate that we're looking for. In fact, we'll make a prediction. Our next great president, according to how history might look at it, probably is not going to show up until the 1990s. How do we know that? Just a gut feeling, that's all.
You're watching the Foxtowner on Cable TV 8. Stay tuned.
Millions of Americans are recycling aluminum these days because it saves energy and conserves natural resources and protects the environment by reducing litter and solid waste. It also provides money for many charitable institutions and other worthwhile causes. For more information on how you can get involved in aluminum recycling through an aluminum recycling center near you, call 1-800-228-2525.
Well, here it is, the start of the new TV season on all the nation's networks. Of course, we're not on the network, but with this program, we're going to play with the big boys. We'll officially begin by telling you about our new season, by telling you about some of the programs that are going to be coming up. Here on the Foxtowner, we'll be taking a look at that growing controversy, certain to bloom in the coming spring elections. Aspects of it almost sound like a little war. The issue, consolidation between Appleton and Grand Chute. One of our guests will be Appleton Alderman Tony Rozecki. Now, he's a freshman in city politics who single-handedly forced Appleton's Mayor Dorothy Johnson and Town Chairman John Stevens to at least sit down long enough to look at each other, to at least agree to look like they're agreeing. Of course, what's going to come from it remains to be seen. A question to be explored. Should Wisconsin encourage a resumption of the mining industry? Once a factor in our state's economy, mining is virtually extinct today. Now there is talk about mining everything from gold, copper, even diamonds in Badger Land. But will that bring prosperity? Scenes like this were once common in northern Wisconsin and upper Michigan. This is the old Pinocchio mine, a picture taken about 35 years ago. Today, you'll be hard-pressed to go on the site and find a remnant. You will find the poverty belt as a heritage. That's what we're going to be exploring on the Foxtowner. And on a happy note, we want to tell you about the Christmas special that we have planned. You'll see it here probably December 17th and 31st, somewhere around then. It's going to be a little unlike any that you've seen before. Now, here's a program that should be networked, but it won't. But we can enjoy it here in our little group, so we hope that you'll make a special effort to join us then.
Cable TV 8, home of the Foxtowner. Stay tuned.
Well, the summer is nearing its end, and with that, the great summer of '87 cruising controversy on College Avenue. At last word, City Hall has appointed a task force to study the problem. That is, if it's really a problem. There's some mixed signals on that. And some sort of solution is to be readied for next spring. A strange thing has happened on the avenue recently. The voices of protest appear to be thinning. And even some folks who are well past that middle age are beginning to say, what's the problem?
It's like a scene out of American Graffiti.
Hey, put that camera away!
We noted a letter in People's Forum of the Post-Crescent recently, where a writer identified himself as age 45 and a College Avenue cruiser graduate of the 1950s. And he said he still likes cruising.
Follow the crowd right around through Soldier Square. It's rolling. Okay. We'll give the listeners a view of what it's like to go right through.
Zero in on that stop sign now. All right, right in the mad jungle. The madness of College Avenue.
Obviously, if you live in the traffic pattern, there's little nostalgia to be held, but nonetheless, College Avenue is there.
TV's great on 8 with the Foxtowner.
For 6 days each week, this area around Cumberland Gate here at the northeast corner of London's Hyde Park is just another busy part of a busy city. But on Sundays, this place becomes very special. For more than a century, this has been known as the Speaker's Corner, where by law, any British citizen can receive a permit to talk about virtually any subject that comes to mind. They bring their boxes and stepladders, battle hecklers, traffic noise, and each other, and air their views on subjects ranging from nuclear war to gardening, or from the common market to the rights of animals. Indirectly, however, this practice can be traced back 700 years when King John affixed the royal seal to the Magna Carta and began building the solid foundation of British parliamentary law and its direct descendant, American constitutional government. It isn't important whether the speeches here address the sublime or the ridiculous. What is important is that they are allowed to speak, and speak freely. Think about it. I'm Jim Hartz with an American Viewpoint.
You're looking at Bill Miller. Bill Miller is a kind of artist, a sculptor, really. What he's doing is he's waiting to show us how he makes artistry in food. Tonight, he will create a pizza. You might recall that recently there was a survey of Appleton's pizza joints. That survey said that Sammy's Pizza, where you're looking in right now, was 4th in the valley. Bill Miller, the artist at work, says that's so much hogwash, and he's willing to prove to us tonight that Sammy's is better than number 4.
Little toss here to get it a little round, get the flour off it. This is a 14-inch sausage pizza that we're going to make here tonight. Sammy's, of course, makes all of its own quality products by itself. Several recipes here that we've used the last 30 years. Oh, you're in the kite, guys. How you doing tonight? Pretty good. Generous amounts of sauce. And the cheese, 100% mozzarella cheese. If I can get it down here in a pizza. And we're not too shy of what we put on here. And then the sausage goes on. And then down into our oven. Another one done. Some of your customers. Oh, there's 2 of our customers. Right behind you. Here they are. Oh, and here they go right now. Hey, thanks a lot for stopping in, Joe.
That's Foxtowner for this week. I'm Walt Kalata. Thanks for inviting us in.
The Valley TV magazine, The Foxtowner, is seen twice monthly here on CPN 8. Check your Cablevision TV program guide for the next Foxtowner date. If you have a subject idea, you think you should appear on The Foxtowner, or want to express an opinion, call The Foxtowner at 731-9790 any day after 11:30 a.m. Your calls are welcome. This is your announcer, Jim Shador, inviting you to join us again. Foxtowner is a Libra Day presentation.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of CPN 8 or Cablevision of the Fox Cities.
Good evening. Welcome on board. I'm Walt Kalata. This is the Foxtowner. And on tonight's program, we just might, have a solution to some of those future football strikes, or at least what you as a fan can do about that. And were aliens from outer space responsible for a recent controversial flap at Appleton City Hall? Well, we'll take a look at these things on tonight's edition of The Foxtowner.
Here's the Foxtowner, the only television magazine in the Valley by and about Valley folks. And now your host, the man who gets around and knows the Valley best, Walt Kalata.
If the recent football strike has said anything, it is that apparently the fans are really not too concerned who wears the uniform that carries the community image. Just that the uniforms be seen, and of course that they are hopeful that they are a winning vehicle for community pride. Well, no doubt there are going to be future football strikes, and that means there's going to be anguish again in the stands or at home. And if that happens, fans might want to take a look toward another really fast-moving sport as a substitute. That's the game of Frisbee. And in September, the World Series of that fast-moving game was held right here in Appleton. Later in tonight's program, we'll be bringing you some of that action, but right now let's get just a bit of a preview. Let's learn something about that sport from New London's Frisbee great, Steve Trogger.
This is the place. This is the second time it's been held here, and the 10th anniversary of the Guts Players Association Guts Frisbee World Championships.
Well, now, as a sport, is Frisbee starting to show a lot of interest? Has it leveled off? Is this just a fad, or how would you explain it?
No, I think Frisbee is going to continue to grow. It's big now. Maybe not around here just yet, but it's getting pretty well known all over. Guts Frisbee is not that popular a sport. There are many other sports like disc golf. Disc golf is becoming a real big deal.
Well, now, when the fellows line up and sort of, it appears to be holding hands, then a fellow seems to be out in what's the backfield, almost acting like a quarterback, throws it. What kind of a break in play is that?
Well, the defensive line is 5 men, in this case, standing fingertips apart.
It is a defensive line.
That proves that they're the proper distance to be apart. They touch fingertips. One offensive player will throw the disc at that line as hard as he can, hopefully to score a point. Score a point by throwing it within their reach and them not catching it.
How many various motions do you go through before a game? Do you have quarters, halves, things of that nature?
You switch. Normally a winner's bracket match is 2 out of 3 games. A game is played to 21 points, you win by 2. A switch of ends is made every 11 points due to wind and light as major factors in how the disc will fly.
New London's Steve Trogger, Frisbee great, and we'll be taking a further look at that fast-action game of Frisbee a little later on in tonight's program. Now there's a question. Were aliens from outer space involved in a recent flap recently on the Appleton City Council between 2 of the city's aldermen? Some weeks ago, a member of the Appleton City Council suggested that there should be a closed session. That's a secret meeting suggesting that another member might have done something not exactly according to Hoyle, or maybe in this case, Robert's rules. But when the councilman couldn't explain his concerns satisfactorily to all of the other members of the city council, well, the alderman refused to go into that secret meeting, and the issue died. But the question remained, what was it all about? This evening, on the Foxtowner, we're going to tell you, is there a connection between this headline and that recent flat? The nation was stunned recently by the headline which disclosed that for the first time President Reagan has been meeting with aliens from outer space. While this has been super secret at the White House and the Defense Department, enough rumor apparently has leaked out to enable The Sun to print the story and even recreate a meeting between the president and the visitors at the presidential retreat, which is in California. Now you might ask, what does this have to do with a controversy involving two aldermen on the Appleton City Council? Well, it's simply this. The effort to announce the arrival of visitors from outer space is actually being planned in stages. Leaders of local government are being introduced on a small scale in a series of secret meetings to the aliens, so that when that announcement is made, it will be done from Washington and on the local level simultaneously. Now, the reason for this is to avoid a scenario such as occurred back in 1938 when Orson Welles broadcast that now famous War of the Worlds program, and that was on radio. Well, under the guise of hearing a complaint against another alderman, the effort was made to get the city council into a secret session so that the alderman could be told that the space aliens have already visited here in Appleton. Well, when the alderman wouldn't buy the wrongdoing ruse and refused the secret session meeting, that sort of blew everything to the wind, and the meeting to introduce the city council to space aliens was frustrated, and it had to be scrapped. Well, now the Foxtowner has been able to get a hold of this exclusive depiction showing Mayor Dorothy Johnson and two space visitors in conference recently held at an undisclosed location here in the Fox Cities. And we are told that similar sessions are being held across the nation under similar and secret circumstances. Now, how do we know all of this to be true? This information has been given to us by a contact who has good knowledge and information about situations such as this. We had coffee with him recently, and that's where we got our information. Interestingly, he's a former Appletonian. His name, you all know him, Harry Houdini. Well, I think in just a moment we're going to do what is quite likely to be an exclusive in the Valley, probably the whole world. We're going to be taking you to the World Guts Frisbee Championships. Tim, did I say that right? Guts Frisbee World Championship?
Sure, that's right. That's the ticket.
Yeah, good. Which was held here in Appleton around the Labor Day holiday period. I don't know how much media attention it got at that time, but we're going to give a lot of it here to you tonight because, well, it seems to me that Guts Frisbee, Tim, is a sport that deserves a lot of attention. It looked, as I think back on that afternoon that I spent with you guys there, like you were all having a good time.
Well, yeah, everybody there had a good time, I think. We had lots of spectators there, and lots of the players were from all over the country that were there. They all had a great time.
Let's talk about that for just a second. When we say World Championship, was this a real, for real World Championship, or is it just something you guys hung on it? Tell us just how serious this event actually was.
Well, this was the 10th GPA World Championships. The GPA is the Guts Players Association, and this is the 10th year that they had it. The championships have been in Chicago and in Toronto, Canada twice. In 1985, the World Championships was there in Toronto, and our team, the Beer City Express, won the World Championships there. There are teams from all over the Midwest and from Canada, and players come from all over the United States.
Mm-hmm. It appears to be a very fast-moving game from what I could tell. And the thought occurred to me as we were filming at Pierce Park that if the day ever came when there would be Monday Night Frisbee or whatever on national television, you'd need a lot of cameras to cover that event, and it seems like there'd have to be a whole new procedure of doing some play-by-play.
Yeah, I guess there would be a set procedure for it that would follow the statistics keeping. I don't know how many cameras you'd need, but the NFL must need a lot of cameras to televise their sport, and then you never hear about Guts Frisbee players going on strike either.
No, that's right. So, and who knows, if the strike goes on long enough, you guys better get your Frisbees out. We might have that Monday Night Frisbee
pretty soon.
a lot sooner than what we think. Well, I'll tell you what, we have Guts Frisbee great Dave Johnson in the studio booth. And do you still play?
No, I don't play anymore.
So you're a Frisbee great too then?
Yeah, I'm a retired, I'm a former world champion.
You are?
Yes.
See, we even got the greats here this evening. I'll tell you what we'll do. Why don't we just roll some of the tape that we made the afternoon that the World Championship was here. I don't even know who was playing, so you'll have to tell me. And let's see if we can figure out how a Guts Frisbee World Championship, the World Series or whatever, can be covered. So why don't you fellows in the booth just push some buttons there and let's see what comes up. And Dave Johnson, why don't you stand by and let's have exclusive here on the Foxtowner, the Guts Frisbee World Championship play-by-play activity. Well, ladies and gentlemen, from fieldside, this is Walt Kalata. With me is
Tim Trauger.
And we also have in the booth our color man,
Dave Johnson.
All right, we make this real professional, guys. All right, what's happening on the field now?
Well, you just saw that world great Dave Johnson just walk past the screen.
Well, that's a major activity.
Yeah, that was a good activity.
You know, the fellows have lined up, and it almost looks like a football play. What were they doing there?
Well, they're throwing the Frisbee back and forth. That's the nature of the game. They're warming up right now. These are guys from two teams that are warming up.
The idea is to make the guy kind of get a bad catch or something.
Right. The idea is not let the guy catch it.
Yeah.
See, there the Frisbee hit the ground. Well, the guy that threw the Frisbee,
is that
his
good?
team got a point.
Yeah.
Well, it's good for the guy that threw it.
Dave, you played for a long time. Is this a physically exhausting game? I mean, it looks like it is, and maybe that's a silly question, but you don't really take breaks like you do in other activity, do you?
Well, no, you don't have timeouts like you do in other games, but most of the players work it out between themselves that they get rest between games.
It looks like they're standing up and holding hands there now. They're not holding hands. What did they just do?
No, they're just spacing themselves apart to the proper distance. You have to stand fingertip to fingertip apart. The court is 14 meters long. See that the...
Now, they didn't catch it. Was that good?
That was a point for the throwing team.
For the throwing team, okay. We've even got a camera crew on hand there. Is this being recorded for posterity or something, Tim? Or?
That was a personal camera of one of the guys from the Beer City Frisbee team.
Interesting names you fellas have. Beer City. What are some of the other colorful names that we hear from Frisbee?
Well, the two teams that are on right now, I think, are Queen City Flyers from Marquette, Michigan, and Video Sensations from Midland, Michigan.
Oh, yeah, okay. And we even had some fingers in the lens there, so this is real professional. There's a young lady. Why did we get her on camera?
There you go. I don't think we have to answer that at all. She speaks for herself.
We are picking up where?
All right, here, now we're on both cameras.
Okay, I think we ended that. Here we go. This is the part I was looking for. We're lining up here now. Do you know any of these fellows that are playing out on the field here? If they're from out of town, I suppose.
Sure, this is the Video Sensations team here.
Oh, okay.
They're playing their match right now, I guess.
Is there any regulation for the use of Frisbee? I mean, does it have to be a certain size or whatever?
Yeah, you use the Pro Frisbee. Whammo makes a pro model Frisbee. It weighs about 110 grams, and we use a orange one with a black or gold.
Here's a good scene of a lineup now. Like
yeah,
I say,
see, these guys are lined up defensively.
That's a defense lineup.
Yeah.
Okay.
the court is 14 meters long, and there's a foot fault on the offensive end. If you cross the line, it's a foot fault, and the throw doesn't count. So, you know, the object of the game is to catch the Frisbee in one hand. That's what he just did.
Now, he threw it on the ground. Was he mad?
No, he was happy.
Oh.
He just spiked it. He, Drastic Plastic, now that's the name for the game.
Now, I notice no one has any uniforms on. How can you tell who's playing?
Well, that does make it kind of hard, and these guys, we know some of these guys, so that's how we can tell.
But
it's hard. It is.
Is there such a thing as a Frisbee uniform?
Yeah, shorts and a T-shirt.
In other words, you could actually. Well, in other words, it would look like a basketball uniform.
Yeah, very much.
Okay.
And our team uniform is navy shorts and any of our various jerseys.
Right now, he really threw a lot of muscle behind this Frisbee.
Yeah, the Frisbee goes up to 110 miles an hour. It's the world's fastest throw.
So it actually could wing you a little bit if it should decide to run into you.
Sure, you bet.
He is recorded as the world's fastest throw.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, that was Dave Young that threw that last shot, that backhand shot.
Well, now,
from this end.
Does Frisbee go by, for example, innings, quarters, what?
No, it just goes by points. In the tournament, we play a tournament format, and at this tournament we played a 2 out of 3 game match in the winner's bracket and a single game match in the loser's bracket, double elimination. So you had to, if you lost 3 games during the day, then you were.
How long is the game?
Done. The game goes to 21 points.
And there's no particular. Now here, someone got injured, and we got a little close-up of that, and you can see a little bit of the crowd there. So Frisbee is also a game of where you can get injuries. And is this an official timeout, or is just everybody just stand around saying we'll wait until we find out if he's dead or alive?
It doesn't go by time. It's more like tennis, where you play until the game's over, as opposed to football or basketball where you play according to the clock.
There. See, now we hear.
Yeah, he's up. We don't like to dwell on the injuries. Most of them aren't very serious.
There really aren't that many injuries in the game.
That was the only one that I saw that particular afternoon.
Yeah, and he just bumped his head. You rarely see anybody draw blood on somebody, or maybe they'll get scratched on a bottle cap or something. But
and he appears to be quite unconcerned about the whole thing too.
Well, he probably never felt it. He's probably totally pumped up with adrenaline from playing the game.
Do you use, for example, reserves, substitutes, like that, for example? Or?
You can substitute every 11 points. That's a cumulative 11 points. You switch ends, so there's no wind advantage. And at that time, you can bring in another player.
Okay, so as I understand from what we've talked about Frisbee here today, there are, what, 5 men on each team?
5 men on a team.
Okay, you have a defense and offense, familiar terms to all of us. Here we got a good look down the field right now. I think this is probably where our cameraman got knocked over for not getting out of the way. No, this isn't the one. You play for a maximum of 21 points.
No, it's 21 win by 2, so you can go up to 29, 27. But you have to win by 2.
In other words, and when you reach that point, then that's the end of the game.
That's the end of the game. Right.
And there's no real time limit as to how long it takes you to get to that point.
Right. There's no time limit.
And since there's no timeouts and breaks of that particular nature, then what it amounts to is a very fast-moving game, probably a very exhausting game.
It is exhausting. In a match, when you're playing 2 out of 3, if you have to go 3 games, it can go into, you're playing 3.5 hours. And
so you got to be in pretty good shape to play this game.
Yeah, for the most part you do, yes.
Okay. Well, there it is. Who knows? This, as far as we know, is probably the first International Frisbee game championship that we've spent this much time on in television.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the exposure.
Tim, anything you'd like to add here?
I guess that just about wraps it up for us.
Good. Hey, that's good sports. That's good sports jargon. That wraps it up, fans. From Pierce Park in Appleton, Wisconsin, You are watching the World Guts Frisbee Championships. We'll be back again next year.
Cable TV 8, home of the Foxtowner. Stay tuned.
This year marks the 200th anniversary of the American Constitution. It's been observed in a number of ways. Here in Appleton, Outagamie County, it came by way of the rededication of the Outagamie County Courthouse recently. Let's look in finally this evening on that event. I think we've all heard those stories about how the Green Bay Packers franchise began a long time ago. A dusty field, fans at the sidelines, a hat being passed in order to raise some money so that the game could continue on. And Guts Frisbee, as we watched it at Pierce Park, seems to have been something like that. It was a world championship, but it still seemed to have an air of those pioneer days. We don't know if we witnessed something great beginning in the world of sports, if this was a pioneering event, if this is a historic event. Whatever it was, it does appear that Guts Frisbee offers a lot of fun and that it's here to stay. And maybe now would be a good time to get an AFL franchise or something like that. That's F, of course, for Frisbee. That's the Foxtowner. Thanks for inviting us in. I'm Walt Kalata.
The Valley TV magazine, The Foxtowner, is seen twice monthly here on CPN 8. Check your Cablevision TV program guide for the next Foxtowner date. If you have a subject idea, you think you should appear on The Foxtowner, or want to express an opinion, call The Foxtowner at 731-9790 any day after 11:30 a.m. Your calls are welcome. This is your announcer, Jim Shador, inviting you to join us again. Foxtowner is a Libra Day presentation.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of CPN 8 or Cablevision of the Fox Cities.
Here's the Foxtowner, the only television magazine in the Valley by and about Valley folks.
That sequence that you just witnessed was produced by Rick Balin. Rick, you are involved with the group in Appleton who are attempting to initiate this hands across the sea scenario. You produced this as the result of pictures that you took when you visited the Soviet Union. Let's start with some of the basics. Tell us what we're trying to do, what you accomplished with this. It's your show.
Thank you. Well, we were attempting to make contact, which we did, with our sister city, Pyatigorsk. We had gone to the Soviet Union in June, from June 14th to the 28th.
Now, these pictures that we saw were in Pyatigorsk or another part of Russia?
They were in 4 cities, actually.
Okay.
We were in Moscow, Smolensk, Leningrad, and Pyatigorsk. The pairing project was formed about 4 years ago by a core group of about 11 people in an attempt to do something, probably more selfish reasons than anything else, because we felt that we needed to satisfy our own needs to do something about nuclear war, the fear about it, and some of the members have children who would have nightmares about it. And we thought that one of the best ways to do it was to make contact with the people and get involved with the people-to-people program.
Now, actually, there's no political process involved here, actually, as I understand it.
That's right. Politics, we stay out of politics completely with it. Actually, we have the blessings of the United States government and the Soviet government. They both encourage city-to-city contact. And our own president is the president of the Sister Cities International.
And you're speaking of President Reagan, of
President
course.
Reagan, right.
Let's talk about Pятигорск. As I recall from the information that's been given to us, Pятигорск is a city of about 170,000. It's located actually in the Asian part of Russia, or Asian Minor, or some geographic area like that.
That's right, it's in Asia.
Yeah, and it's quite an attractive city from what I understand. We think of cities in Russia as being very drab and stuff like that. But as I understand, Pятигорск is quite an attractive community.
It is. It's about 175,000. It's located in the Caucasus and between the Black Sea and Caspian Sea.
Okay.
And it's
so
really...
that's actually a temperate climate area too, isn't it?
Very temperate. They have mild winters. As a matter of fact, our winters are more severe than theirs.
Oh, I would believe that, yeah.
It's a beautiful area. Pятигорск means 5 mountains. Pity is the Russian word for 5, and Gorsk for mountains. And there are 5 mountains that surround it, so it's kind of in a bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a resort area as well as a spa. And I think that its biggest claim to fame in the Soviet Union is the curative powers of the mineral springs there.
Oh, I see.
So people come there for rehabilitation, neurological rehabilitation, stress management, digestive problems, heart problems.
Community with a lot of professional people then.
Many professional people, right.
How did Pятигорск get the nod as far as being the sister city to Appleton? Was there some special process involved?
What we did was, we originally were paired with a city north of Moscow called Vichuga. And some of the viewers probably remember that we never got a response from them to our letters.
Not to lose the chain of thought, but have you ever been able to find out why Vichuga never materialized as our sister city? Or?
Well, we feel that there's a good possibility that it could have been located near military installations.
Oh, okay.
Or the Soviets are also very protective of technology, and there could have been factories around there. The other thing is that the community may not have been able to take tourists. They may not have had enough hotel space. And the Soviets want you to be real comfortable. They want you to feel at home there, so to speak.
That would have made them uncomfortable if you couldn't have been comfortable.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we never got a response from them. We had then contacted Dr. George Smalley, who's a professor of Slavic language at Lawrence University, and we asked him what would be a good city there to try to contact. He's been to the Soviet Union many times with the Lawrence Slavic tour, and he said, try Pятигорск.
So he knew about the community?
He knew about the community. He had been there. And he thought that they would be very receptive to this.
Well, now, when you first arrived in Pятигорск, this was the first official connection, so to speak, and the people there learned that a community called Appleton, Wisconsin. I just wonder how Appleton would translate out in Russian. That ought to be interesting. But I wonder, how did they react to you? Were they enthusiastic that, hey, we've got this town that's located in what they call the Midwest, in this place in Wisconsin, and they're going to be our friends, and et cetera? Were they enthusiastic about it? Did they react to it?
They did. We had sent them a letter about a year ago, and telling them that we wanted to make contact with them, that we wanted to share with them a Sister Cities relationship. And it took them about 4 months, and they responded. We got a letter midwinter from Vasily Parshin, who was their chief city official, who would be like the mayor. He was real honored that we had chosen Pятигорск, and he wondered why we did, what was special about his city.
Why us?
Why us,
yeah.
Right. And he was very anxious to meet us. He sent a letter that the mayor had read, I believe, to the press.
Yeah, I remember that, sure.
The city council, I think, was aware of that. And that was the beginning, and he said, yes, we're interested. The next step for us was to become part of Sister Cities International, which is really what you have to do if you're going to have a full-fledged relationship.
And this is actually a national organization.
It's a national organization. There are 2,000 American and Soviet cities matched through Sister Cities International.
You know, I don't think very many people are aware of that.
No, and I think that it's an on and off basis. There's some cities, for instance, Sheboygan has been paired with a city named Shuya for about 2.5 years.
That's interesting, Sheboygan and Shuya.
And Shuya,
Yeah.
they get packages of artwork and letters, and they have a pen pal program going, and they're getting packages constantly. Milwaukee, I believe, is working on a relationship with Leningrad. We try to match cities that are similar geographically, similar demographically, and size. And even though Pyatigorsk is much larger than Appleton, we match population if you consider the whole metroplex, the whole Foxtowner area.
Yeah, very easily.
So the getting involved with Sister Cities International was the big thing, and we've just learned that we have the City Council's blessing for this, and we're real thankful for that.
Well, now, what about, you've mentioned that it's the officials that you've had some contact with, and undoubtedly some of the professional people, but what about the average, I'll use the term, what about the average Ivan on the street? Is he aware also that this is going on, and have you had an opportunity to measure any of that?
Well, the people we met on the street were not aware of the program. They will be aware now because we've passed the resolution, or we're about to pass the resolution, that we could get in this program so we could start the exchange going.
So that brings the average person into the picture then.
Well, and the Soviet leaders, their mayor will now tell the people what's going on. The school teachers will be encouraging the students to, excuse me, write letters. Art teachers will get students and artists to make artwork. And so they will now be fully aware. And what we would love to do eventually is send them T-shirts and receive T-shirts celebrating each other's cities and with messages about our lifestyle.
What about an exchange of visitors? Is that likely now? Obviously, Appleton has been represented in Pyatigorsk by the pairing project, but what about people from Pyatigorsk? Will they now come to visit us in Appleton?
Well, they can't wait to come. When we left, they said that the next visit they would hope would be from them. We're probably looking at the summer of 1989.
Okay.
And it'll be a delegation of probably their mayor and the city officials, along with a press corps from Pyatigorsk that will cover their trip. After that, there'll be professional people, teachers, professors. They have a language institute there. We would love to set up an exchange program where Lawrence students could study at the university in Pyatigorsk, and we could have their students study at Lawrence. We, on a lighter side, we know that they would love some Kimberly-Clark products, and some toilet paper would be real appreciated.
I understand that although Russia is becoming a highly technical nation, whether they get their secrets through their own efforts or steal them, as we read in the news, one of the things they haven't been able to accomplish either way is, shall we say, an acceptable piece of toilet paper.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's rough, to say the least.
In many ways, right?
Yeah. Of course, they're used to it. The Soviet lifestyle is not cushy. They're not used to creature comforts. And I think that they look on Americans as a little soft and a little pampered and having much more than we need.
But from other programs that I've seen on television, for example, and other people I've talked to who have visited the Soviet Union, I get the distinct feeling that the Soviets would like to enjoy about the same cushy, soft stuff that we do.
I think it's true. I think that given a choice, they would like to see that part of life. And having this much contact with the West that they've had, they want more. Look what's happened to China. with fashion and lifestyle. They're emulating.
Changing very rapidly.
They're changing very rapidly,
Yeah.
and leading the way. John Denver, Neil Diamond are very popular over in the Soviet Union. Kiss, Prince, Michael Jackson. Rock groups that go over there are welcomed with open arms. They love the American lifestyle, even though they really see us as wasteful. Given a choice, I think any
They like
human
to waste
being
a little too, right?
like to waste a little bit.
Sure.
But you know, people have said, how do you know that the Soviets wouldn't come over here and then want to live here?
Well.
And when we were there, the thing that we were struck by, I think, the most was their community spirit and how tied they are to the motherland, much more than to socialism or communism. A Russian person, if you ask a Russian person who you are, they're not going to say, I'm a socialist or a communist. Like we may say, I'm a Republican or a Democrat.
Yeah.
I am a citizen of Mother Russia. I am a son or daughter of the motherland. They're very proud of the Soviet Union. And I think that seeing where they came from, World War II was so devastating to them. 20 million Russians died in World War II, and they're still rebuilding. And they're very proud of where they've come from all that devastation.
We'll talk about that in just a moment. For those of you who have tuned in late, we're talking with Rick Balin about the Appleton and Pity-Gorse pairing project. Rick, of course, spent some time there earlier this year, took a number of pictures, and produced the little segment that you saw earlier in the program. And we're going to have another example of the type of work that Rick does in just a few moments. World War II is a very interesting period, I think, for many of us, from the standpoint that I think that this is when a great deal of America really became aware there was a Russia, for many reasons, and I think that this World War II was the time that brought the awareness of Russia to my attention, because at that time I was a very, very little youngster down in, it must have been, I think, kindergarten, first grade, somewhere in there, and I can remember, and of course when you're a youngster, various impressions being made on you, but I can remember as youngsters we were taking collections at home of canned goods which we would bring to school, and they would be packed up to be sent to Russia. And this was at the time of the shipments, you know, over the North Sea. We all remember the history there, the time when they moved their industry back into the Urals and all this was going on. I wondered if there's any recollection of that at all in today's generation of Russians. Have you ever gotten into that type of discussion as to what the American-Russian relationships have been in the past, or have you been just looking forward to the future? Maybe you could enlighten us on that.
While we were there, we got into several conversations with people who reminded us that we were allies in World War II. And it occurred to us that visiting with these people and living with them for that short amount of time, we still are allies. We're desperately, at least the people are desperately trying to regain something that may have been lost, namely living in peace together. We're both aware that our governments probably are pretty fearful of each other. Actually, I think the Russian people fear us by what their government tells them about us.
And of course, we have a reverse situation too.
That's right.
You know,
that's right. A big question that people have are, why do the Soviets want to take over the world? I'm not sure they want to take over the world.
They have plenty right now.
I think that they know that democracy is very strong. They're not going to be able to take that away from us.
In other words, they're not trying to be evangelists for communism or anything like that.
No, and communism, I don't think that there's anything inherently evil about communism. I don't think that there's any greater advantage or disadvantage to communism or democracy.
For example, you notice that people go to church in Russia.
They do. Actually, they're classified in two categories, the believers and non-believers. They are allowed to go to church. Certainly there has been human rights oppression there, as there has been here.
In many ways we kind of parallel one another, don't we?
We both have our problems. And that was one thing that we wanted them to know about our city, that it's easy to go to a place and talk about how much you love your town and the people are wonderful and the economy is stable. We wanted them to know that we have problems like any other city, but we're working to solve those problems. We still have crime where we don't want it. We still have problems with unemployment at times, but we're working to solve those problems. And they showed us how they're working to solve their problems. Alcoholism is a big problem to the Soviets.
As it is here
as it is here.
Well. We're talking with Rick Bellin, and we're beginning to run just a little bit short on time, and we want to look at another segment that Rick produced. And Rick, you showed these at a concert recently to raise some funds and to help keep this project going, because you are totally privately funded. You have no public funding at all involved with this. And We Want Peace was the name of the first segment that you saw. And very quickly, Rick, could you tell us about this next segment that you produced while you were in Russia taking the pictures, and give us a little bit of background as to what the theme is?
The We Want Peace, the name of the multimedia presentation, is the message that we got from the Soviet people. We do want peace, and we want to live peacefully with you. The first segment was all dancing, and it was dancers that I photographed throughout our trip through their free expression, and an expression of the celebration of life and wanting peace.
Now, these next scenes are in Leningrad?
The next scenes are going to be in Pyatigorsk and Moscow and Smolensk. Okay. And it concentrates on the people and the land, the architecture, the things that the Soviets...
Do you have a title for it?
It's the second segment of We Want Peace.
Okay, let's take a look at it. Rick Bellin has been our guest. Rick, thanks a lot for being with us this week.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me here. If there's one message that I'd like to leave the viewers with is how important it is to recognize the Russians as people much like ourselves with hopes and dreams and fears. The whole project of pairing Appleton with Pitigoris is in an attempt to make each other aware of each other's cities and to celebrate each other's lives, bypassing the governments and just trying to live in peace and being happy together.
And I'm sure we're going to hear more about that as time goes by. Well, that's the Foxtowner. Thanks for inviting us in. I'm Walt Kalata.
The Valley TV magazine, The Foxtowner, is seen twice monthly here on CPN 8. Check your Cablevision TV program guide for the next Foxtowner date. If you have a subject idea, you think you should appear on The Foxtowner, or want to express an opinion, call The Foxtowner at 731-9790 any day after 11:30 a.m. Your calls are welcome. This is your announcer, Jim Shador, inviting you to join us again. Foxtowner is a Libra Day presentation. Here's the Foxtowner, the only television magazine in the Valley by and about Valley folks. And now your host, the man who gets around and knows the Valley best, Walt Kalata.
Good evening. I'm Walt Kalata. This is the Foxtowner, and welcome on board to tonight's edition. This evening, we're going to be exploring some of the implications of that recent stock market crash, and we have a question: do we have a depression in the wings? An Appleton alderman will join us to tell us why he doesn't like a friendship pact between a Russian city and Appleton. And as we begin to head into that Thanksgiving and holiday period, we're going to take a look at some people who have little to be thankful about. But first, Appleton Alderman Mark Reinholz recently objected vehemently when the Appleton City Council approved a ceremonial resolution that would have linked the city of Pitigoris, which is in the Asian area of the Soviet Union, with Appleton in a friendship pact, something that's officially dubbed the Sister Cities program. It's not unlike the plan between Wisconsin and Nicaragua, where we are linked as sister states. Reinholz is arguing that Appleton's action simply offers propaganda material, which will be distorted by communist interests in Europe. Well, we talked with Alderman Reinholz recently in order to get a deeper look at his opposition.
Well, I objected to the resolution for Appleton and Pitigoris to become sister cities, actually on several bases. My first concern was that by coming to the council with this resolution, it in fact carries the weight of law. Once the council votes on it, once it is an approved council action, it goes forth with the recognition and the weight of any other action that the council takes. The newspaper, I believe it was, commented that this issue was a perfunctory vote, a formality, perhaps. I guess I saw it as more than that. The notion being that once the council takes an action, we may look at it as something less than a formal recognition. We may look at it among ourselves as, you sure we'll take this action, and it's not to us the same as enacting an ordinance. However, when the action of the council is taken out of the context of the city, out of the context of the county, outside of the state of Wisconsin, outside of the United States, it goes to a foreign government with the weight of a U.S. law.
Have you had any feedback as far as the reaction from the public to the position that you've taken? Has anyone expressed any thoughts to you as to how they look at this issue?
A number of people have called me, and an interesting parallel raises itself. The people, I've received approximately 100 phone calls now. The call list that I've been running is about 75 or 80 of those calls are in favor and in support of the action I have taken in denouncing the Appleton-Pitigorsk situation, particularly in regard to a council action on the issue. That was surprising to me. It was also heartening to see that that many people cared to call and express support for my position. The parallel that I mentioned earlier is I have received more one-time phone calls in support of myself on the Appleton-Pitigorsk issue than I received in terms of one-time phone calls in the entire paramedic issue. And I'm sure that you recall the furor, if you will, that was raised whether or not the city would have fire department or private paramedics. Myself, I received about 35 one-time calls. I received other calls from people who called me back at various times to re-express, re-examine my position, what have you. But on that one-time, one-shot call basis, I've received probably about 3 times as many calls on the Pitigorsk issue as I did on the entire paramedic issue. And that to me says something. That says that there's a lot of people out there in the community who at least have called and told me that they were not aware of this coming up, and they do not like nor appreciate this sort of pairing.
The suggestion you made, I believe it was in either a newspaper interview or perhaps you made it on the council floor, was that this provides propaganda value for the Soviet government. Do you still feel that?
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. Propaganda value in something like this is tremendous because it's multifold, and it gets back to that issue of the council action having the weight of law. The issue comes out when it's published in Soviet-inspired newspapers, which are distributed particularly in Western Europe. When I was a young soldier on active duty in Europe in the late 60s, I saw these papers distributed. I remember my feelings, usually of being let down, usually of feelings of being unsupported by the people I was in Europe to represent, namely the Americans at home. By those articles, when I returned to Germany in 1986 as a member of the National Guard, I again saw some of those newspapers and witnessed among active duty personnel the same sort of disheartening that I felt and I verbalized nearly 20 years prior.
Well, now, what do you think should be done? Should it just be left alone at this point? Should the council rescind its action? Should we not get involved again? What's the overview that you have?
Well, obviously, I'm not pleased with what's happened. However, since my position is also one of a conflict of interest, my understanding of the council rules is that I cannot initiate a reconsideration motion. That would have to come from at least 2 of the 19 aldermen who voted in favor of it. I have encouraged those people who have called me to contact the aldermen who have voted on the issue and to express their opinion to them. If a reconsideration move were to be made, I for one would be pleased, and I think that in the future the city should not take action on these matters, particularly where they involve governments with interests opposite the United States' stated position.
You're watching the Foxtowner on Cable TV 8. Stay tuned.
Know what it's like to find your daughter's birth control pills? By mistake? You get angry. Maybe about what the pills might mean, but mainly because you didn't know. She didn't know how to tell you. Well, one thing I can tell you is this. If you're going to find out your teenager is sexually active, I can think of worse ways. A lot worse. Can't you?
Well, the big flap all fall has been all about the stock market, what's happening on Wall Street. And there have been those who've said it's reminiscent of 1929. The newspapers have been full of stories, and we've seen things on television. There's even been some tragedy that's been involved. Well, we've had a few weeks now to sit back and breathe a little bit. And let's find out just exactly what happened back there a couple of weeks ago. And for that, we've invited Ray Brock to be with us this evening. Ray is a stockbroker. He's with Piper Jaffray of Appleton. And of course, they're in the stock and securities business. Ray, kind of an umbrella, a simplified explanation. And that kind of puts the onus on you a little bit. But what did happen in the latter weeks of October? Did we see 1929 repeat all over again? Of course, how would we know? When the last depression occurred, nobody really knew about it till about 1931.
That's exactly right. What happened was that the market had become overbought. There was too much froth in the market. And everybody thought that there was no limit. You had people dealing in the market, young money managers who had never seen a bear market before, had all of a sudden got the feeling that there was going to be no end to this. And they started talking about the market getting to 3,000 and 3,500. And all of a sudden, somebody got the feeling that it was overbought and began to sell. And that triggered selling by computer in great volume. As you know, we're trading 200-300 million shares now. We're back in 1974, we were trading 8,000 shares a day. 8 million shares a day compared to 235, 240 million. So it became overbought, overheavy, overburdened, and collapsed.
Well, Ray, interesting point comes out of all of this, and that has to do with, I don't know what you call them in the business, the young tigers with their computers. One news analyst suggested that these were the kids who grew up with computers in the middle 70s, and they learned how to play with them, and then somebody showed them what a stockbroker's office looks like, and they kept on playing with them there. And that a great deal of the problem that occurred was triggered by this computer maneuvering. And let me just expand on the question just a little bit. As I understand it, what the computer does is it compresses the figures together so that when it spits out its results, what you've actually got is an exaggeration of what the real situation is. Maybe you could take it from there.
To boil it down, what we have now with the computer automated trading, we have what we call stock indexes. So we're not actually trading in the stocks themselves, we are trading in options or indexes on these stocks. One option in a stock index is equivalent of $100,000 worth of stock. So what happens here is that they're using both the stock market and the index as a hedge, as sort of insurance protection. So as soon as they see one or the other markets accelerating, where they can get an eighth or a quarter of a point, that means they can make 12 or 25 cents a share, and they're dealing in millions of shares. They will immediately sell off the winning side and take a profit. That causes the other side then to collapse also and start stocks dropping. And the converse is true. That's how they bid up this market to 2,700. And of course it got to a point to where there were profits to be taken, and they started to take profits. And as they did, the computerized, automated trading accelerated things because it was more concise. There was no human exchange like we're doing tonight. In other words, if you and I were going to talk this over and say, what are we going to do in this market, take a profit or whatever, we could at least negotiate.
Right.
The computer is mechanical. It doesn't negotiate. If you set a number on the computer, when it hits it, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. It's done. And that's what happened. The computers trigger off, and before you knew it, it was one program after another. And as you notice over the past couple of weeks, when the New York Stock Exchange put a halt to computerized trading, things sort of quieted down.
Well, now, it would seem to me, Ray, that from that description, what the market is dealing with is not then really reality, is it?
Well, in a way not. But it's a computerized age, and I love it. Even at my age, I am going to be modern enough to believe in the computers. It has to be refined. There possibly have to be some limits put on. The margin rates in the stock indexes is 10% as it was in 29. The margin rate in stocks is 50%. There's a 40% advantage immediately. So you don't have to put up as much collateral or money to trade. Is it a 29? No. You have to go back to realize that in 29, the economy was already failing. There already were numerous jobless.
That's an interesting point because as some of the analysts that I have had an opportunity of watching have pointed out, there's really nothing in, or at least back in October, was nothing in the economy that should indicate a failure. For example, new housing starts were up.
Right.
Joblessness is down. GNP was up. A situation such as we witnessed theoretically should not have occurred, should it?
Exactly. And earnings-wise, the corporations, 80% of the corporations reporting earnings are reporting higher earnings this quarter and this year than last year.
Okay, what about, let's bring this part in. We've heard this over and over and over again. What about the deficit, the national deficit? How much has that played? And are we hearing of the deficit as an economic problem? Is it just political talk? How do you analyze that?
I'm glad you asked because I did bring along a little quote that I think you're going to enjoy. The Fox Valley people. Blaming the October 19th drop on the trade deficit is akin, in the words of the late Red Smith, to blaming the Johnstown flood on a leaky toilet in Altoona. So that's about the extent of it. And I think it puts it in proper perspective. The deficit is a worldwide situation. You must remember, at this time, we already know what Tokyo is doing.
Right.
By tomorrow morning, we'll know what Tokyo did and what England and Australia are doing.
Do the people in these worldwide stock markets, or these trading centers, do they really watch one another closely? For example, I've also heard it said that, well, you really shouldn't pay a whole lot of attention to what they're doing in Tokyo because they're kind of crazy over there. I don't know. What do you...
We're one world. I hate to see it, but we're getting more concise, more constricted every day.
Yeah.
The satellites are a big thing. So in the days of Bernard Baruch, you didn't know until a day later by wireless what had happened in England. When I get to work in the morning at 8 o'clock, I already know what the English market has done. And based on what they're doing, I get a feel as to what the American markets may do. So yes, we are, sorry to say, very interdependent on each other because the Japanese, of course, are involved very heavily in the American economy, in real estate, in finance, in industry, and so consequently we can't ignore it.
Dollar devaluation. Are we going to see that playing a part in the market, or is the market having an effect on the dollar? And where's that going to take us? Except that I also heard, I think it was today, that the Europeans are kind of figuring it'd be nice to come to the United States again because the dollar might be better for them here.
I think they're going to continue to knock the dollar down because we are importing too much.
Yeah.
And there's got to be some way to stop these imports. To me, this becomes a scare. They're actually telling people, look, there's a recession, there's a depression coming, don't buy, save your money. More money is going back into CDs and the deposit accounts and so on. And actually, the purpose there is probably to constrict purchases and also to devalue the dollar or lower the dollar value. What we've done right now, actually, in the marketplace, with the big fall of 500 points on Black Monday, we actually, when you figure it out, have devalued the dollar. There were billions of dollars lost. Where did they go? They just evaporated. They're there no longer.
Okay, that's another point I think that many people wonder about. We hear about somebody losing X number of dollars, and like I say, some of the tragedies we've read about in the news have been connected with that. Has this been an actual loss of assets to the individual, or is it just paperwork, or explain that to us?
For the most part, if you have not sold your stocks, you have a paper loss. So actually, it's just on paper. Now, if you have actually sold and have taken a loss than it's actual. So there's no reason to believe that the market cannot come back and go up again. We've done it before. It happened in 29 and 31.
73 was a bad year?
73, 74 was more vicious than this, I'll tell you. As I say, we're trading 8 million shares a day.
Yeah.
And we're doing 400, 500 million shares right now, so it's quite a big difference. And there's more money involved. The Federal Reserve has pumped in more money into the system. The market dropped 500 points. Do you feel any worse for it? Do I feel any worse for it? I mean, I empathize with our investors, certainly with my clients. I feel sorry for them. But the point is, we're not really that much worse off. And frankly, possibly in a week or two or a month, we probably won't even remember that there was a Black Monday.
Quoting one of those many analysts that I've been hearing and watching, one of them suggested that by about March or April, it would be just as you suggested, pretty much out of the picture as far as what we are thinking of.
Well, that's about it. Shortly after that drop, you've seen stocks like Kimberly-Clark, for instance, down to $43, immediately started to rise again. And by large amounts, 10, 15, 20% in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Which means that they actually weren't any worse off 2 weeks after the plunge than they were a week before the plunge.
Right.
There was the same company. And so consequently, one should just hold on here, I'd say.
Ray, would you have a thought that you would like to leave our viewers with tonight in connection with this discussion?
What has happened, history repeats itself. We all do the same thing in a different way, age after age. I don't care whether you're a club member or a stock market, whatever. We always work out of these things, and we work in cycles. So we may be in a prolonged cycle now, and we may go into a skid, but the way the age and the computerized age is going is being contracted to where instead of waiting 1 or 2 years for something to get back on track, this may all have happened or happen within a matter of weeks or months. And certainly the economy is good, and the American people are very ambitious, and I think that we'll come out of this and probably be seeing higher prices and better standard of living in the future.
Ray Brock, I want to thank you very much for joining us, bringing us some light at the end of the tunnel. And the next time we have another crisis like this, we'd like to have you come back and bolster us up again.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
TV's great on 8 with the Foxtowner.
Hello, and welcome to our special guest, McGruff the Crime Dog.
Thanks, Dick.
Now, do I understand that Neighborhood Watch programs have reduced crime in some areas as much as 50%?
That's right, but there's more to be done. Start a volunteer escort service for older folks.
Aha, good news for the old folks at home, eh? What about the young folks?
Start McGruff houses.
Which are?
Houses kids can duck into in case of trouble.
For more information, write to this address and help
take a bite out of crime.
Well, now I think we've had enough that's serious for tonight's program. So why don't we all join together in a fantasy tonight? Maybe a fantasy that you've been harboring a little bit in your mind. Why don't we all go on an African safari?
Africa's best-known wildlife sanctuary is most probably the Kruger National Park in the northeast corner of the Transvaal province. This large tract of land was set aside at the turn of the century with the intention of conserving the indigenous animal and plant life of South Africa. The effective size of this reserve has been considerably increased through the latter addition of a number of privately owned game reserves bordering on the national park. These smaller reserves cater to an exclusive local and overseas tourist market in that they offer accommodation in luxury game lodges and they provide the services of highly trained game rangers. On arrival at the game lodge, the visitor is assigned to a game warden who takes responsibility for the guest throughout the visit. A normal day starts early at the private game lodges. when the first game drive of the day gets underway. With the game ranger driving and the tracker keeping a lookout for the first signs of wildlife, it does not take long before the guests see their first wild animals. The smaller reserves have as wide a selection of animals as the larger Kruger National Park, as the game moves freely over the boundaries of the various reserves. Land Rovers move out in all directions, but radio back their sightings to a central control point, which in turn relays the positions of the wild animals to other vehicles. At various points in the game drives, the visitor can accompany the armed ranger and tracker on foot, following the spoor of some animal. When observing animals at close quarters, such as these lions, guests can do so in complete safety. For although the Land Rover is open, the rangers are aware of the telltale signs animals give out when they feel threatened and start preparing to attack. One of the definite advantages of coming on a safari like this is that the visitors are able to leave the road and drive into the bush, where they can have very intimate contact with the animals they see. And you can even get close to normally shy animals, such as the cheetah, if you're careful. This breeding herd of buffalo have learned to trust the Land Rovers and are now quite used to vehicles moving very close to them. Buffalo can be dangerous and should never be underestimated. The herd is constantly on the lookout for any signs of danger. But today, any animal sanctuary is expensive to maintain, and solid business principles are necessary to manage successful game lodges. On a private game reserve, the animals must pay their way to prevent the land from being handed over for farming or industrial development. As long as the private game lodge pays its way through the tourist spending power, the wild animals of the area will be maintained. Another area of conservation where the private game reserves play a role is bush clearing. Before bush management became the buzz phrase, bushfires kept scrub encroachment off the grassland. Today, however, the grass areas have to be opened by habitat squads. This is particularly important to the zebra and wildebeest, as these animals prefer to move around open areas in the wild. But all this and more is told to the guest by their well-trained and informed rangers. The hippo, for example. Many people steer hippo only as an overgrown water pig. The ranger will tell you that it is one of the most dangerous animals on the African continent. And although very few people are killed by wild animals in Africa today, most of those that are fall prey to either hippos or crocodiles. Looking at this hippo bull skull and the pronounced teeth, the damage it can inflict on a human being becomes clear. Probably one of the most exciting game drives is still the night excursion, where Africa moves with an age-old rhythm, oblivious to the march of time elsewhere. The day ends at the private game lodge with a dinner under the African sky, where the guests can relax and start anticipating their next day, out in the bush of Africa.
And that's tonight's Foxtowner. I'm Walt Kalata. Thanks a lot for inviting us in.
The Valley TV magazine, The Foxtowner, is seen twice monthly here on CPN 8. Check your Cablevision TV program guide for the next Foxtowner date. If you have a subject idea, you think you should appear on The Foxtowner, or want to express an opinion, call The Foxtowner at 731-9790 any day after 11:30 a.m. Your calls are welcome. This is your announcer, Jim Shador, inviting you to join us again. Foxtowner is a Libra Day presentation.
Did the late Harry Houdini foul up the Foxtowner's remote cameras on Halloween night?
Have you ever taken a tour on a Valley Transit bus? These and more on tonight's edition of the Foxtowner, so stay tuned.
Here's the Foxtowner, the only television magazine in the Valley by and about Valley folks. And now your host, the man who gets around and knows the Valley best, Walt Kalata.
We've got a bag full of tricks for you this evening, but first of all, let's spend a few minutes with Dan Glasheen of Kaukauna. Now, the mayoral contests for the spring 1988 ballot are pretty well shaping up in the Valley, and Dan is going to be one of the players. He's presently a Kaukauna alderman, and of course, he's seeking that city's highest post. A moment before we talk, a word about Dan and I. We both share somewhat of a common background. We both came via the media route, both by newspapers and radio. As reporters, we both became involved in the local political affairs of our respective communities, but there it somewhat ends because Dan is a candidate for mayor and I am not. So that means, Dan, you're on the firing line and I'm still the reporter. So this is where we begin to have the fun. Dan, do you think that the years that you spent as a reporter, and as I recall you worked for Oshkosh newspaper and several different radio stations, do you think that helps a person to become a better politician, a candidate for office?
Oh, definitely, Bill. You know where to look. You know what questions to ask. With a base in journalism, politics, in effect, becomes easy.
Mm-hmm. How about your tenure as alderman in Kaukauna? Let's see, I think you're in the 3rd ward, is that it?
I'm in my 3rd term in the 3rd ward.
3rd term in the 3rd ward, okay. I don't know if that's an omen of any sort, but have you found it an enjoyable experience? Now that might sound like a kind of a mundane question, but analyzing how you used to look at politicians, city officials when you were a reporter, now you've had the taste of it for a few years, put on your reporter's hat again and look back at it.
Nothing has changed. I find it fascinating. It's still fascinating every day. Nothing has changed.
Well, now, what about your coming candidacy for mayor of Kaukauna? You are opposing a man who, to the perspective of an outsider, myself here in Appleton, appears to be quite popular in his community. That must be throwing quite a challenge.
It is, yes. However, what you're asking me is what are the issues in our campaign over there?
Okay.
Well, as you know, Bill, in any city campaign, there's only one issue. The only issue that can be looked at is how well is the administration delivering service, municipal services, to the taxpayers. What's the quality of those services, the quantity, and the costs? That's, no matter whose campaign you look at, that's what it boils down to.
So when we get to that all-elusive question of what are the issues specifically, if I were to pick something out of the air in Kaukauna right now and say, Dan, is this an issue? Are you going to run on this? What would you say is the priority?
The issues will fall into that field. It will have to do with municipal services one way or another. And start with cost, if you want.
Okay.
Are we paying too much for the services we get?
All right, that brings up a real interesting question, which I think is going to enter the mayoral contests of every city in the Fox Valley this year. And that is, and it goes under the term umbrella, or rather the umbrella term of Fox Cities concept. I think the Chamber of Commerce for the Fox Cities coined that. But what it really means is communities getting together to share services, materials, equipment, you name it. Is that something that is going to come to Kaukauna?
It's there.
Okay.
It's there in a different form and has been going on for years. The 4 communities that make up the north end of the valley have cooperated with each other. There are formal agreements, signed formal contracts that exist, wherein our police departments work together, our fire departments work together, and other contracts are in the works. What we have found, and it's taken years to develop these, what we have found is like Kaukauna is equipment heavy in the fire department. A neighbor might be manpower heavy, a volunteer department. Obviously, you can see how you could work together. But what we have found, the secret of doing this is you must never let the other community lose its identity. They have to maintain their identity as long as the other community, as long as each community remains its own separate community, then the agreements come easy.
Do you think it's foreseeable that if a Fox Cities concept were carried too far, looking at the broad regional, metropolitan sort of machinery that always seems to enter the picture, that communities might be in danger of losing a little bit of that identity, which all of the Valley communities are very, very proud of?
It would become similar to a Los Angeles, where Los Angeles at one time was also a number of individual separate communities, and now they've all been homogenized actually into the county of Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Yes, it would happen, I'm afraid.
Well, let's go back to the pocketbook, because that's something everybody understands. How do you analyze Kaukana's budget for this year, or actually it's for next year?
The budget, it's a good, tight budget. There are some problems in it, of course, and nobody's 100% happy, which may be good, but we have had a shifting of taxes down there. As you know, we've had some very serious problems in our industrial sector. And the industrial tax base has wasted away. It has shifted the tax load onto the homeowners. Plus, taxes have been adjusted around, causing a higher level of taxation for a lower level of services.
Dan, we're just about out of time for this evening, but I want to thank you for stopping by. Here you're an alderman, just getting ready to run for mayor, and you're already in the evening rush. Lots of luck over the next couple of months.
Thank you, Bill.
When we return, a question. Did the spirit of Harry Houdini foul up our Foxtowner cameras? We'll be right back.
Channel 8 wants to bring your family closer together. Saturday afternoons from now until Christmas, Channel 8 will help you to make a holiday video greeting. Call the studio at Law Street, 738-3160, to make an appointment to bring in your family and record a short holiday greeting on VHS tape. This special holiday service is only $16.95 and includes the VHS tape. Call Channel 8 today and make your appointment to send your holiday greetings around the world.
TV's great on 8 with the Foxtowner.
Valley Transit, the local mass transportation system, has been in the news again recently. The bus line will be facing some cutbacks in the coming year. It was developed to its present state during the gas crisis back in the 1970s. And as a result, it emerged as one of the better public transportation systems in the state. Yet, it faces an uncertain future. What's the apparent problem? Well, the problem isn't with Valley Transit. It's with the public. That's you who haven't been using the system as you probably should be. If you've never ridden a Valley Transit bus, let's get on board because we think you'll find it interesting. Recently, we picked up our Foxtowner camera, and we took one of the runs, and we set up to give you kind of the driver's view. Naturally, this run is condensed, but it will show you the wide area of service on just one route, which began roughly a block off downtown, and by the time we're through, it's going to take us to the north city limits and back. And our driver on this run is Jerry Lautenschlager. And we've invited to be in our studio this evening Corinne Goldgar, who is the director of marketing, or do I have your title right, Corinne?
You do not have it right. It's marketing coordinator.
Okay, marketing coordinator, Corinne Goldgar. And we thought that it'd be kind of nice if you would go for a ride with us and talk to us a little bit about what's ahead for Valley Transit as best as you can envision it. Maybe remind us a little bit of where it came from, which really wasn't that many years ago, but it's beginning to seem like a long time ago when you first started writing grants and trying to put the whole thing together, and actually, well, we didn't have much of a bus line in those days, did we?
Well, the city of Appleton bought the local transit system on January 1, 1978, which means we are coming up to our 10th anniversary in about 6 weeks. The local private operator had almost been forced to let the system run down because, well, although the city was subsidizing it, there sort of wasn't a future for the private operator, and they were not putting money back into the system. They were not giving it the kind of maintenance. The equipment was not being replaced, and fares were going up. And there is this wretched cycle that when fares go up and service gets poorer, you lose riders, you lose fares, the service gets poorer, and we don't want to get into that situation again. We've really done quite remarkable things in the past 10 years, as you know. We have upgraded the system rather remarkably. On the day of the evening that we are taping, we did our onboard survey, and I haven't anywhere near read through all of the surveys that came in, but our riders, the people on the buses, think we are doing a very, very good job. Now, did every person who was surveyed say, yay, Raw Valley Transit? No, they didn't. But far and away, the great majority did, and of course eventually we will have computerized tabulations and we'll know exactly what the percentages are.
One of the things, Corinne, that has come out of the recent budget sessions at City Hall, of course, has been the discussion of Valley Transit, and we were told at that time that there are some adjustments going to be coming up. I don't know if you're prepared to talk about them this evening, but apparently there's going to be some route changes coming, I believe in June?
In June, and I can only talk about them in a kind of a broad and general way.
Okay.
The budget that was presented to the council and was approved by the council projects cutting 2 routes within the city of Appleton. We don't know which 2 routes they will be at this time, but whichever routes disappear, the other routes will be adjusted so that nobody will lose service, nobody should lose service, but the bus stop that the person is accustomed to use may move a block or so further away. In other words, it'll be a little bit thinner than it is at the moment, but everybody should continue having service within the city of Appleton. There is some talk of cutting 1 route outside the city of Appleton, and I'm not prepared to talk about that at all. We really have no specific details, and the survey that we did today will have some bearing on what happens.
Worst case scenario, Corinne. Let's say that Valley Transit were disbanded. We know that's not going to happen, but let's just take that as an extreme. And then sometime in the early 1990s, once again, lo and behold, we have another one of these gas crises type situations, and suddenly there's a great demand for public transportation. Would you be able to put the system back together if it ever had to be torn apart?
Well, of course, you can always start over, but the fact of the matter is that it took us a good 5-6 years to get to where we thought we really had a top-notch system. Now, we were making improvements all the time from the day the city took over, but making improvements and getting better is not the same thing as having a top-notch system. I worry about what would happen if the system were gone. As I told you, we did our onboard survey today, and one of the things we ask on there is, why did you choose to make this trip by bus? And the great number of people who said, no other transportation available.
Now, there has been, as part of a national trend, and certainly Appleton and the Fox Valley hasn't been by any means alone in this, but there's been a trend toward a decrease in many areas in the use of public transportation. Do you foresee, is there anything in the market that your industry group in their many studies has been able to uncover that would indicate that this trend is going to change, that this is just part of a cycle or something?
Well, no, I don't know of anything that indicates that this trend is going to change. I suppose if the Ayatollah cuts off the oil, that'll change it real quick. Last year in this part of the country we had an extremely mild winter. That may have had something to do with ridership being down during the past year.
On a rotten day, can you get a lot of ridership that you normally don't have?
Well, it's really kind of interesting about the ridership and weather. I always say that a cool, drizzly day is the best bus riding day. A day when people are not forced to stay home, but they don't want to walk either. On the other hand, today was a very mild day for the middle of November, and what I'm discovering in reading these survey forms is that we had lots of shoppers and people who were out for social and recreational purposes. A year ago today, when we did the 1986 onboard survey, we had unseasonably cold weather, sub-zero in the middle of November, and I would swear to you that everybody who was on the bus because they had to go out. Nobody went out who didn't have to. So we're very weather related. We really are. We have more riders in the winter than we do in the summer.
And of course you have the holiday period and sidewalk day when it seems like people are just hanging on the sides of the buses and the bumpers simply to find a space to get down. Wouldn't it be nice if that could happen all the time?
That would be lovely. The first thing you need before people are going to ride the bus is that they need to have a place to go. If you make parking too easy, they're not going to ride the bus, or too cheap. They're not going to ride the bus. The thing that people really want, and the thing that gets them onto the bus, is that it should be more convenient than going by some other means. Now, because we have to share the streets with the other vehicles, we cannot get you there faster than you can go in your car. We simply cannot. We share the streets with the cars, and we can't take shortcuts. But on the other hand, you don't have the hassle of driving. You don't have you know, the worry of, is somebody going to scratch the paint on my new Camaro, that kind of thing. People ride the bus for all kinds of reasons, but the thing that the industry is doing, you asked what the industry was looking at in all of this, is marketing. And Valley Transit, which has marketed itself very hard from the beginning, is stepping up its marketing at this point.
So in other words, you're going to be inviting people to ride Valley Transit.
That's right, and reminding them that we're there. My feeling is, if they know we're there, when they need a ride, they'll come and get on. If they know how, they know where, they know when.
A quick question about, and we have just a few moments left, but this may answer a question that I'm sure has come to you many times, has come to me many times. Everyone points to the big buses and say, why those big buses? Give us a going away present on that.
Well, the fact of the matter is the big buses are more economical than small buses because they last longer, so that your capital investment is really less in the long run. It doesn't cost any more to operate a big bus than it does a small bus. The capital investment is less, the labor is less, and the labor is our biggest cost because one vehicle, one driver, I don't care if it's a motorcycle or a 53-passenger bus.
We are coming near the end of our ride, Corinne. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio and talking to us a little bit about Valley Transit. And
wasn't it a nice ride?
It was a nice ride, considering that we started out in the early afternoon, and look at it now. It's the evening hours, and quite frankly, I love taking nighttime camera shots, and that's one of the reasons why we did it this way.
Well, it's a beautiful night, beautiful ride.
It really is. So, for you folks out there, as we said when we started the program, if you've never taken a ride on Valley Transit, and I think more of you should, here was a freebie for you this evening. And I think we're getting ready to pull into the stop where we just started off.
And I know a number of people who, as part of their relaxation routine, like to just simply do what we did here. Get on the bus, go for a ride, with no place in particular in mind, just taking a look around the valley. You can do it too.
Can we...
TV's great on 8 with the Foxtowner.
People can't get enough of the rumors about who's sleeping with whom. Now they're latching onto rumors about AIDS and sex. The reality is, AIDS is sexually transmitted, so you have to be aware and selective, because you're sleeping with every person your partner's been with for the last 10 years. So know what you're doing and find out the facts.
Rumors are spreading faster than AIDS. Call your local Red Cross for the facts.
If Thomas Paine were writing today, he'd be called a troublemaker, or at least a rabble-rouser. He was, after all, an Englishman who didn't migrate to North America until 1774, a scant year before Paul Revere made his famous ride after being signaled by a light in the Old North Church here. Yet in early 1776, Paine's emotional pamphlet, Common Sense, which espoused independence from England and the formation of a strong federal union, probably influenced the political thinking of our founding fathers more than any other single document of the day. Needless to say, the King's government wasn't all that pleased with Tom's writings and did what it could to suppress his pamphleteering. Fortunately, the British were unsuccessful in keeping Paine out of print. Had they been, much of the political focus and rhetorical emotion would have been absent from the revolutionary movement. Tom Paine, a rabble-rouser or a true patriot? Think about it. I'm Jim Hartz with an American Viewpoint.
Well, now, we leave you this evening with a little bit of a mystery to solve, and maybe you'll be able to come up with the answer. Checking our memory banks, you might recall that it was not too many weeks ago when it was Halloween, and the CBS network, I believe it was, had a seance. And what were they trying to do? Well, they were trying to call back Appleton's most famous son, Harry Houdini, from the great beyond. It was supposed to be, as I recall, the last of the seances, and if he didn't show up this time, well, it's goodbye, Harry. We aren't going to try and call you anymore. Well, we talked to some people who know about ghosts and spirits and things that go bump in the night and all that sort of thing, and we could have told all the good producers on CBS that Harry was not going to show up because he didn't believe in seances and spent most of his life debunking them, and he certainly wasn't going to show up on CBS and make a fool of himself. But we do not lack for opportunity on the Foxtowner, and we thought that as long as the networks were paying the bill and as long as they were doing the seance calling, we thought we would kind of horn in on the act, and we did. Now here's something to remember about a spirit. They hang around familiar places. That's why you have haunted castles and haunted houses. And if the house is appreciably changed or torn down or the castle disappears, no more ghost, because there's nothing familiar to hang around. For example, if Harry Houdini were to come back to Appleton today, he would not show up at where his former home was located, because that's now Houdini Plaza, and he doesn't know what Houdini Plaza is. But let's suppose for just a moment that Houdini would come back, assuming that he had that ability. And you remember, he said before he died that if there was a chance to come back at all, he would be the one who would do it. So where would he come if it was to be in Appleton? Well, it would have to be someplace familiar. We think the two logical spots that Harry Houdini would have shown up at if he were to respond to a seance would have been either City Park, which is virtually unchanged since he was a boy and lived in Appleton, or possibly the neighborhood where his father's synagogue was located, is still located and is owned by the Outagamie Historical Society, and it looks virtually the same. Those would be the two places that Houdini might show up to see if he could find someone familiar. So what did we do? We set up our camera crews. First of all, we went to the corner of Harris and Durkee Street, site of the former synagogue. And this was the scene Halloween night. Now, it looks very Halloweenish if you take a good look at it. Didn't see Harry around anywhere. But we had a camera crew also set up at City Park. And look at what happened when our cameras scanned the park just as the people on television were calling Harry Houdini to show up. When we knew he wouldn't show up in New York, he'd show up in Appleton. Now, I'm not saying that this has anything to do with it. I'm not going to say any more about it. You give us the answer. Did Harry Houdini sabotage the Foxtowner's cameras? I don't know if we'll have the answer. That's the Foxtowner for this evening. I'm Walt Kalata. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
The Valley TV magazine, The Foxtowner, is seen twice monthly here on CPN 8. Check your Cablevision TV program guide for the next Foxtowner date. If you have a subject idea, you think you should appear on the Foxtowner, or want to express an opinion, call the Foxtowner at 731-9790 any day after 11:30 a.m. Your calls are welcome. This is your announcer, Jim Shador, inviting you to join us again. Foxtowner is a Libra Day presentation.